afternoon, everyone. For the third year HRM students, our seniors, our beloved professors, and to our distinguished guests that are present here in the webinar, we all welcome you to the Hotel and Restaurant Management Lecture Series 1, the professional learning session for future tourism and hospitality leaders. May we please request everybody to settle down and open your cameras for the opening prayer to be led by our third year HRM student, Miss Maria Isabel Dinenjola.
Let us put ourselves in the holy presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Direct, O God, we beseech thee, all our actions by thy holy inspiration, and help them on by thy gracious assistance, so that every prayer and work of ours may begin with thee and by thee happily ended. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please remain your cameras open for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
This is a much-awaited event that was initiated by the Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management, the HRM department, that will surely improve our knowledge by this supplementary webinar for our ergonomics and supply chain management subject.
I am Desiree Hoa Embassador, the Treasurer of the Hotel and Restaurant Management Society for the school year 2020-2021.
And I am John Galcus, the Documentation Officer of the Front Office Ambassador.
And we are
your
hosts this afternoon. Since we're still waiting for our Dean, we would like to ask for some questions regarding our subjects, ergonomics and supply chain. So, Gal, kamusta naman ng floor plan or ng business mo sa ergonomics?
Well, I'm still planning for my business or my restaurant sa ergonomics, which is a restaurant theme of Greece. Yarn.
Inspired by Greek.
Yes, kasi fan ako sa Greek mythology, and I want to embody my restaurant to be like that. Learn.
Wow, ako naman mag-open ako ng cafe.
Wow, cafe.
So, yeah. And then I'm planning on opening it sa Tagaytay.
Oh, Tagaytay.
And I love cold weather, kaya I chose that place.
Nice.
And then, yeah, I think for our series today, I think magiging helpful yun for our inputs and outputs sa mga paperworks natin at yung mga designing natin when it comes to your restaurant,
Yes,
diba?
yes.
So, are you excited ba?
I'm really excited.
Yeah, ako din. Very, very sikat yung, yung speaker natin. It has, and sobrang known na siya sa may industry.
Yes,
Ang dami na niyang...
I've seen his pilot. It's really amazing. Wow.
Promise guys, magiging helpful to sa mga, mga decisions natin when it comes to yung mga big details, mga equipments, down to the littlest details na nandun sa may restaurant natin. Right, Kyle?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
So yun, we would want to, to ask yung some classmates natin to share some insights.
Yes, go
later
ahead.
siguro.
Yes. Later or right now?
Siguro we can ask one student. What do you think? You can call someone naman siguro.
I'm thinking one will lead the prayer.
Miss
Mrs.
Isa.
Isabel Mendoza, are you still
Isa,
there?
can we ask for some insight?
Miss Isa.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Isa. You have ergonomics class then, right?
Yes.
Ano yung naiisip mong business?
The business that my group has created is actually a vegetarian. It's not actually a restaurant, but it's a ghost restaurant. We will deliver takeout packed meals for customers who will purchase healthy meals. And yun.
That's a great concept.
Yeah, lalo na sa time
Yes.
right now, no? Very, very health conscious na yung mga people right now.
Yes.
So, thank you, Isa.
Wow.
Moving on, for our opening remarks, it is with great pleasure and honor to introduce our beloved Dean of the Institute of Tourism and Hotel Restaurant Management, Dr. Joy Sheila Baraero Era. Let us all give her a warm round of applause.
our Assistant Program Head, Mr. Eugene Benita. I'd like to welcome our guest speakers, Mr. Charlie Villaseñor, Chairman of Procurement and Supply Institute of Asia, and Architect Diego Regio, sorry, I hope I pronounced it right, for sharing your time and expertise to our students and for joining us in this first of the many lecture series that we have. This is the Professional Learning Series for Future Tourism and Hospitality Leaders. Of course, I'd like to also welcome all the students under the classes of our HRM faculty, our very able HRM faculty, who also helped us invite the speakers and helped us organize this webinar. Dr. Adalbert Alcaide, Dr. Ulysses Gatchaliar, and Dr. Pamela Honson. So thank you for also bringing your class. The course is Ergonomics and Facilities Planning for the Hospitality Industry. And I think our first speaker will discuss about the modern restaurant design and layout. And our second speaker will discuss about being resilient and adaptive in terms of digital supply chain and having a smart manufacturing strategy. So I think these are all very industry-based and industry-driven, given this new situation, or should we say new normal that we have as we cope and adapt to this COVID-19 pandemic. So here we can see that our industry is very resilient in recovering probably or bouncing back from the tremendous effects of brought about by this pandemic. And we can also see that as we look into the challenges, there are also boundless opportunities that we can tap. And definitely our tourism and hospitality industry will continue to thrive and survive. We have survived in the past, we have survived similar or probably catastrophic events in the past. We have survived wars and other phenomena, and I'm very sure that we are, ready. In fact, we are opening our doors in terms of going back in restaurant, hospitality, and other tourism-related establishments. And having said that, I would like to thank and commend the HRM department for also coming up with this lecture series in preparing our future and future professionals and future leaders of our industry. We know that our institute, Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management, is celebrating its 10th year this year. And looking back, we have achieved so much, and we have gained so many milestones. And but still, there's still a lot of areas that we can grow and still develop as an institute. And we're happy to see that in spite of the situation that we are all in right now, the HRM department continue to provide industry-driven trainings, certifications to fully arm our students who are the future leaders of an industry to be competent and very much ready uh, as soon as they graduate. So with that, I welcome you all. I hope you learn a lot from this session, and I hope that you continue to support the other lecture series that the department has organized. Thank you and a pleasant good afternoon.
All right. Thank you so much, Dean Era, for that very inspiring speech. We all know that we are adapting to this new normal, and we hope all of us are safe in our respective homes. So that's
To start with our first topic entitled The Modern Restaurant and Design Layout, may we ask Dr. Ulysses Cachillar, our Ergonomics and Facility Planning for Hospitality Industry Professor, to introduce to us our first guest speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Daisy Casador and Mr. John Gilchrist. Did you hear me? Narinig niyo po ba ako? Malinaw
yes, sir.
po ba?
We can
Yes,
hear
sir.
you.
Thank you. To our beloved Dean, Dr. Joyce Sheila Paraero-Era, to our program head in HRM, Maritza Liwanag, to our assistant program head in HRM, Sir Eugen Benedicta and Dr. John Malonzo, faculties, students, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker, a graduate of Science in Architecture from 2011-2016 at the University of Santo Tomas in College of Architecture. He also took the MicroCAD, also known as Basic AutoCAD, last 2013, and right after he graduated, he also experienced to build plans, design residential units, and skylines. On the same year, he started his official work at ASIA, where he learned a lot from one of the topmost architectural firms, where he mostly handled the small to large scale project and commercial building. In the year 2018, he passed the architecture licensure examination. Later on, he joined the agency architecture, where he mostly worked on the residential houses. And ever since last year until now, together with his co-partner, they opened Sensia Architecture and Design. It is a small architecture firm where he is currently working as the principal architect. Also, he worked as a project architect at the Line Scale Enterprises, owned by his family. Moreover, he is also the project architect for JCF 99 Builders Incorporated, owned by his soon-to-be-in-laws business, where he worked as an in-house architect. He also managed his own business as graphic design studio named Hatch Graphic Design. Certainly, he learned a lot of methodologies and gained various experiences throughout the years. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome architect John Vincent Riego.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, medyo mahina lang yung sounds natin.
May nga po ba yung sounds? Oh, ulitin ko po, sir.
Sir, Yuli, okay po. Si architect po yung medyo mahina, sir.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you po. Architect? Hello, sir?
Hello?
Ayan, sir. Ayan. Better. Thank you po.
Better. Okay. So, nakikita niyo ba yung screen share ko?
Sir, hindi pa po.
Wala pa. Okay,
Wala pa
sorry.
po, sir.
Wait lang. Screen share. Ayan. Wala pa rin.
Wala pa po, sir.
Okay, wait lang ah. Mhm.
Miss Elaine, please remove muna the screen share from your PC. Sir, we can see na. Try po ulit.
Nakikita niyo na yung screen ko.
Yes, sir.
Nakikita niyo na, okay. Pwedeng pa request lang na makontrol ko yung Zoom meeting natin.
Yes, sir. You are the co-host na po.
Okay. Wait lang. Sorry wait lang. I'm not sure kasi kung bakit hindi ko ma-full screen yung slides ko. Pero for a while lang po
Okay, Des and John.
Yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
Hello, for a while lang muna, saglit lang. Kasi hindi ko alam kung bakit hindi ko ma-full screen yung slides ko eh.
Hello, Des?
Hello. Hi. Hi, guys. So I guess we can also ask someone ulit from the
Yes,
people to share some insights. Can I ask Moises?
Hi.
Hi, Moises. Can you turn on your camera?
Hala.
Ayan. Kamusta naman? Kamusta naman ang business natin? Kamusta naman ang business mo sa Ergonomics?
Okay naman. Talagang, medyo complicated, pero kinakaya naman.
Medyo mahirap, pero talagang...
Kailangan kumayod. Ganun.
Anyway, I'm sure naman Riego will be able to help us when it comes to designing our restaurant.
Yes, tama ka dyan.
Yun. So I hope we learn a lot from this lecture series.
Totoo yan.
I guess
So, nakikita niyo na yung slides ko?
yes,
Yes, sir. We can see your slide.
Okay, so I guess okay na siya. So, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm here to discuss about modern restaurant design and layout. So, mag-start na tayo. Modern restaurant and layout. Dining is a multi-sensory activity that attracts customers through sight, reinforced by smell, and satisfying them through taste. So, ang relation niya with architecture is that, kumbaga, sa simula pa lang, yung architecture design natin is, siya yung nakaka-attract ng customers from afar pa lang, di ba, makikita nyo naman. So, for our first part of the topic, for this afternoon is architectural context and limitations. The second part is the building design. The third part is the space planning. And the fourth is the new normal of modern restaurant. Restaurant flow in relation to the attraction. So yung flow niya, relating it to the attraction, ang
Sir?
Hello, sir.
Hello?
Nagka-technical difficulties.
Hello, guys. We're having some technical difficulties. So may we ask for your consideration? Thank you. Yes?
Yes. Maybe we can continue asking Moises muna.
Yeah.
Moises?
Yes, ano naman? Ano na naman?
Guys,
Yeah.
I know the internet connection is really hard right now because of the maintenance of our internet. So that's, maybe we can ask another one.
Who's the lucky one? Wait lang. Let's ask. Christian Andres. Andres?
hello, sorry for the technical difficulties. The struggle is really real kapag
Yes,
online.
sir. Understand naman po, sir. No worries pa.
Wait lang, balik tayo. Ayan. So, simulan ulit natin. Ang tatakal natin na topic for this afternoon is about modern restaurant design and layout. So, yung dining which in relation to architecture is that dining is a multi-sensory activity that attracts customers through sight, reinforced by smell, and satisfying them through taste. So, kumbaga, sa dining, hindi lang puro panlasa yung ginagamit natin, hindi lang puro pangamoy. Nagagamit din natin dyan yung sight because yun yung unang nagbibigay ng impression sa restaurant natin. Next slide tayo. So, we have 4 different parts for this afternoon. Part 1 is the architectural context and limitations. Part 2 is the building design. Part 3 is the space planning. And Part 4 is the new normal for modern restaurant. So, restaurant flow, the attraction. We have 3 elements, namely exterior, entrance, and the interior. So, isa-isa natin silang itatakal. First is the exterior. Ito yung talagang dapat striking, kumbaga. Then, dapat from exterior pa lang, magbibigay na siya ng idea kung ano yung food na sinaserve natin. Dapat ganun tayo pag nagde-design ng restaurant. So, I have a question, guys. Where would you want to drink your coffee? Door number 1 or door number 2? Siyempre, lahat naman tayo, di ba, would choose door number 2, right? Kasi feel natin na nabenta na agad sa atin ng Starbucks yung product nila habang tinitignan pa lang natin sila. And kung titignan kasi natin yung sa door number 1, hindi siya mukhang well-maintained, kaya parang marami kang mapapansin while drinking your coffee. Compared sa number 2 na ang ganda and ang relaxing ng dating. Next is the entrance. So, tapos na tayo sa exterior, di ba? Since na-curious na tayo sa Starbucks branch na yun, habang naglalakad tayo sa streets ng Japan, ayan na, napunta na tayo sa Japan, no? Then, yung entrance is, it gives the interior and exterior elements sa restaurant natin. Kasi, kumbaga, pag nasa entrance pa lang, may isip natin na yung exterior, ang ganda. Tapos sa entrance, may view na rin tayo of what's inside. So, makikita natin, ay, Instagrammable siya. Parang ang sarap dito magkape. Kasi, priority halos lahat ngayon ng mga tao is whether worthy ba siya na mag-take ng pictures, ganon. And then, ayun. Meaning, excited tayo na makapasok sa loob. Then, our third element is the interior of the restaurant. Ito yung stage kung saan nagpe-perform yung mga servers and yung mga users natin. So of course, pagkapasok natin, na-feel natin na not only Instagrammable ang place, but also comforting rin siya, no? We were affirmed that we experience and would definitely want to go back to drink our coffee again. Tignan nyo naman pagka ganyan yung interior. Parang ang sarap balik-balikan, di ba? Parang ilang post kaya yung magagawa ko dyan on Instagram. Next is the context. Let's talk about the context. It is how you would assess your restaurant to be. So we should ask ourselves 4 questions. Number 1, location. Where is it located? Does the site attract customers? Katulad kanina, may narinig ako yung isa gusto raw magtayo ng cafe sa Tagaytay. Actually, maganda yon since alam naman natin na Tagaytay is puntahan talaga siya ng mga iba't ibang tao, tourist man or locals, di ba? So, kahit gaano kaganda yung building mo, kung pangit naman yung location mo, for example, nasa tabi ng Kalahiban, nasa Safari, may mga leon na dumadaan sa gilid, may pupunta ba doon? Obviously, wala, di ba? So, dapat kino-consider natin ang location ng restaurant natin. Next is the target market. Kailangan i-define natin yung target market natin before we design. Kasi baka mamaya nag-design tayo ng, ang target market natin is middle class. Then nag-design tayo ng super high-end, high-class talaga na restaurant. Kung ako, middle class, then makakita ako ng sobrang gandang, mukhang fine dining na restaurant sa labas pa lang, feeling ko hindi ko na siya papasukin agad kasi parang yung exterior pa lang sinasabi na sa'yo yung price range ng foods na sinaserve nila. So kung middle class ako, baka kahit silipin yung menu, hindi ko na gawin. Kaya dapat maging clear tayo kung ano ba talaga yung target market ng restaurant natin. Kasi magiging basis rin siya ng design natin. Correct? Okay. Number 3, type of restaurant. Dito, in-enumerate ko ang type of, classify ko ang type of restaurant into four. First is the high-end and fine dining restaurants. Ito yung may mga waiter service. Ito yung types na you'll just have to sit down, then a server will come to you to get your orders. Pati pag magbabayad ka, itataas mo na lang yung kamay mo, di ba? Like parang recitation na lang yung dating. Tapos lalapitan ka na nila. Then, second is the casual dining, or ang tinatawag ko rin na waiter service, semi-self-service, or self-service. It also includes buffets and other restaurants like Kenny Rogers. Kumbaga sila yung nasa middle eh. Kasi, for example, Kenny Rogers, design nila is high-end, magaganda. Pero may ibang Kenny Rogers restaurants na nire-require nila na pumila ka pa rin, and may iba naman na may menu sila, ganun. So I consider them as casual dining restaurant. Then third is the fast foods or yung mga self-service and semi-self-service. Mga examples nito is very famous, Jollibee, McDo, KFC, and many more. Then lastly is yung cafe. Classify ko siya differently because iba yung sineserve niya eh. Mostly parang light foods lang yung sineserve niya and drinks. So, important din na i-classify natin yung gagawin nating restaurant and i-define natin kung ano ba talagang type siya because, for example na lang, bibigyan ang type ng restaurant mo is fast food. Then magpapasok ka ng furnitures na sobrang lalaki ng tables, sobrang lalaki ng chairs. Eh di ba sa fast food, when it comes to fast food kasi di ba people come and go lang. Talagang fast-paced din talaga sila kailangan. Kung malalaki yung tables and chairs mo, very inviting siya para magstay pa yung customers for a bit longer eh. Parang mas relax sila after kumain, busog, hawak sa tiyan, tapos tatambay pa ng ganyan. So, kailangan maging clear ka kung fast food yung restaurant mo, yung tables and chairs natin is i-minimal natin para na rin makapag-cater ng maraming customers and para na rin hindi makapag-invite na magstay pa longer yung customers natin. And also, para mas mabilis makadaan yung servers and yung customers rather. Para mas mabilis yung flow nila inside your restaurant. Kasi pag high-end and fine dining na restaurant, mostly relaxing talaga yung mga chair nila, puro cushion talaga. Then, yung mood ng lighting nila, iba. Yung mga ganon. And sa number 4 is theme and concept. For example, itong image na nasa slide natin, which is Ichiran Ramen, yung theme nila is the Japanese restaurant and yung concept nila is cubicle talaga para makapag-focus yung customers nila while eating ramen and makapag-focus lang sila more on the food, mas ma-feel nila yung linamnam, yung sarap, yung lasa ng kinakain nila. So, dapat na ayon yung theme and concept natin sa food na sinaserve natin. Okay, nakaka-follow ba everyone? Malinaw ba yung voice ko?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good sir.
Okay. Thank you. Then, that concludes our first part. And punta na tayo sa second part, which is the building design. For the building design, there are factors to consider in designing an optimum plan. First is the circulation. Kumbaga yung circulation ng tao exit sa loob ng building natin. The yellow colored arrow represents the employees and the cyan colored arrow represents the customers. Kung mapapansin nyo, sobrang minimal lang ng pagtatagpo between the customers and employees, which is for me mas maganda kung ganyan yung flow ng design sa loob ng restaurant nyo. Lalo na kapag yung mga waiters natin, yung mga servers natin, may mga dalang malalaking mga foods, mga drinks, then makakabump sila into customers, di ba? Tapos matatapon yung like ng medyo bad trip yun. May separation sila at least sa loob ng restaurants natin. Next. The methods of service. If it is self or monitored service, the restaurant design will very much depend on whether the staff would serve the food or if it's a self-service restaurant. So, katulad nga nung sa architectural context natin kanina, isa rin siya sa consideration para makapag-design tayo ng layout ng restaurant natin. And lastly is the overall dimension of the given space. The restaurant design heavily depends on the whole proportion and area available. So magdedepende pa rin yung design natin sa availability ng area provided. Then may rule of thumb na sinusunod in restaurant designs, which is 60% of your total area should be the front of the house or the dining area, then the remaining 40% should be the kitchen area or the back of the house. Meaning, kung may 100 square meters ka na area for your restaurant, 60 square doon is i-allocate natin for the dining and 40 square doon is i-allocate natin for the kitchen. Kasi ang ginagawa ng iba, parang gusto nila i-maximize yung customers nila, i-maximize yung profit. Kaya nilalakihan nila yung dining area. Nako-compromise yung kitchen natin, hindi proportion. Kaya sometimes, hindi natin nasiserve ng food lahat. Talaga, yung iba talagang naghihintay ng mga 20 to 30 minutes. Minsan pa nga, di ba, inaabot ng 1 hour. So, dapat proportion lang yung pagkaka-layout rather ng restaurant natin. So remember nyo, 60% is for the dining or the front of the house and 40% is for the back of the house or the kitchen. Next is the features of an efficient restaurant design. So the human comfort, it is the overall consideration for the design. It primarily relies on thermal comfort and indoor air quality, lighting, and acoustics. And also, dapat yung restaurant natin should provide comfortable personal space. Like, merong enough space to sit, to walk in and out comfortably of the building. Tapos dapat enough din yung knee space natin sa baba ng table. For example, yung image na pinapresent dito sa slide na to, kung mapapansin nyo, yung distances ng mga tao sa isa't isa is magkakalayo, at least giving them enough elbow space para comfortable silang makakain. Then yung tawag dito, yung space below the table is unobstructed siya para at least comfortable yung customers natin kahit mag-4 or something like that. Dapat ang primary consideration talaga natin is the human comfort ng customers natin. Okay, another feature of an efficient restaurant design is the thermal comfort and indoor air quality. Since internal heat gains ay napakataas talaga sa restaurant kasi nandiyan yung may mga nagluluto, yung equipment na ginagamit natin in cooking. Then nandiyan yung mga electrical equipment din natin na nagre-release din ng init. So, dapat balance siya and dapat kino-consider natin gumamit ng HVAC system or ang tinatawag natin heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. Imagine na lang, nasa isang restaurant ka. Napakaganda. Then servan ka ng food, servan ka ng soup. Napakaganda nga ng restaurant. Kaso, sobrang init naman. Then pagkatikim mo ng soup mo, no? Sobrang init, talagang pinapawisan ka na. Tingin mo, may enjoy mo pa yung food mo kung all sweaty ka na. So, dapat consider natin na balance lang siya. Kasi pangit din naman yung soup mo from the server's hand, umuusok pa. Then pagkalapag sa table mo, sobrang lamig na. Parang wala rin, di ba? So, dapat natin siyang i-consider talaga. Yung iba kasi, parang nako-compromise nila. Kasi yung iba akala nila, basta sobrang lamig, okay na. Pero hindi nila naisip na hindi naman lahat ng pupunta sa restaurant nila naka-jacket. Yung iba ngayon, naka-sleeveless lang, di ba? Then next is yung lighting. Yung lighting, it enables the occupant to work and move around in safety. It provides for our visual needs. People intuitively know that light affects their mood. Kaya ang challenge dito is to create a lighting systems that would improve the overall performance of the users and human comfort. Hindi kasi pwede na ang kino-consider lang natin palagi is yung customers natin, di ba? Na, ay, gusto ng customers natin is accent lighting lang or mood lighting lang. Siyempre, dapat i-consider din natin dito yung servers natin na makakita ba sila ng maayos in the dark, makakita ba sila ng maayos kapag sobrang madilim. So for example, di ba, sa mga fast food restaurants ulit, kung mapapansin niyo yung lighting nila is sobrang maliwanag. Kasi it promotes to improve the productivity of the servers and the waiters. Parang pag maliwanag kasi, mas nakakakilos sila ng mas madali, mas nakikita nila yung ginagawa nila. And also, it allows the customers na para hindi ganun ka-relaxing feeling compared sa mood lighting or accent lighting natin. Hindi siya ganun ka-relaxing, hindi ganun ka-inviting. Kaya yung mga, kasi imagine no, sa Jollibee, puro accent lighting, puro mood lighting. Then yung tao tapos na kumain. Fast food nga siya . Paano yung mga ibang customers na naghihintay sa labas? Kawawa naman sila. So dapat yung lighting natin is naayon din sa restaurant na ide-design natin. Actually, ang uso ngayon sa mga high-end and fine dining restaurants talaga is puro mood lighting lang sila, accent lighting. Minimal lang yung ambient lighting nila. Ambient lighting is yung overall lighting kasi niya . So minimal lang yung ambient lighting niya. Kasi parang mas relaxing naman talaga, di ba? Pag puro mood lighting lang. Then, the third one is the acoustics. Sa architecture kasi, may iba't iba tayong elements na nakaka-affect sa acoustics natin or sa noise quality ng restaurant, ng structure natin. Merong mga people chatting dyan sa tabi-tabi, or may mga background music, or even yung architectural design mismo is nakaka-affect sa noise quality ng structure. For example, kung paano nakaka-affect yung architectural design. Dito sa image na nasa slide natin, kung makapapansin nyo, yung wall and ceiling niya is made na wavy para yung sound is madali lang mag-flow. Then, sa restaurants, traditionally, meron silang carpeted floors, mga soft furnishings, mga upholstered chairs, mga tablecloths, and curtains which provide sound-absorbing qualities. Pero mostly kasi our recent trends lean towards a modern design, di ba? Kaya kadalasan mga high ceilings and hard surfaces ginagamit natin. Though magaganda naman yung mga elements na yun, aesthetically pleasing talaga siya. No doubt. Nagpo-produce sila ng excessive echo. Kaya ang challenge dito is magpo-provide ka ng high ceiling, pero yung ceiling mo is iti-treat mo to minimize the echo. Kaya for a restaurant din talaga, you should consider the balance between the aesthetics and acoustical levels to achieve ultimate human comfort. Kasi sometimes naman yung mga acoustical design na gagamitin natin, pwede pa siyang makaserve as accent sa design natin. Katulad nga dito sa image shown sa slide natin. And yung mga materials din na ginagamit natin sa restaurants natin, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, yung mga soft furnishings, ganyan, is nakaka-affect din para mabawasan din yung echo sa loob ng restaurant. Pangit naman kasi yung habang kumakain ka, tapos yung kabilang table, diba, nag-uusap sila about something na ayaw mong marinig habang kumakain. Kaya mas maganda na yung controlled yung acoustics within the restaurant. Okay, next is the circulation. The space design plan should allow the servers to move quickly with food and beverages in the restaurant and allows the guests to move in and out ng structure natin freely. The areas for the specific functions need to be designed in such a way that the seating capacity space is yung 60 square meters na for dining, kailangan provided na ma-maximize natin kung gaano, as much as possible talaga yung area. Kasi of course, sino bang walang gusto na kumita, diba? So, i-maximize natin yung area, papalakihin natin yung seating capacity ng dining hall natin without compromising yung comfort nila. Dapat may enough space pa rin tayo. May enough space pa rin yung user, and di pa rin sila feel cramped sa loob ng restaurants mo, even while eating and dining, no? Katulad dito sa image provided ulit in our slide, yung seating capacity niya is nilayout niya parallel to each other para na ma-maximize na yung gitna is for the servers to serve foods na hindi obstruction yung mga chairs natin. Then yung comfort ng mga customers natin, nandun pa rin since may enough space sila between each others. Parang pag yung servers natin dadaan sa gitna, hindi niya mababangga-bangga yung mga upuan ng mga customers natin. And minsan nakakainis pa naman yung mga ganun, di ba? So dapat, ayun, yung flow ng tao or yung circulation ng tao inside our restaurant is dapat smooth lang talaga siya. Next is the furniture. Depending upon restaurant type, menu, service table setting, and the degree of intimacy required, table size and overall chair space requirements can and should vary considerably. For example na lang, sa isang steakhouse. Ayan. Mostly kasi sa steakhouse, ang design ng tables nila is bigger compared to your usual dining spots. Kasi, syempre, steaks, di ba? Yung iba, grabe maghiwa. Talagang ganito maghiwa eh. So, dapat may kino-consider mo yung ganong situations. Kaya yung space for each person, yung personal space for each person is mas malaki talaga compared sa mga kumakain lang ng mga soup, mga ganon. Yung mga normal na meal lang. Then, a restaurant that encourages the rapid turnover of customers will typically provide a smaller tabletop and chair. On the other hand, or rapid turnover of customers pertaining to fast foods restaurants. On the other hand, restaurants that encourage limited turnover and emphasize the wining and dining experience will usually offer larger tabletop sizes and more comfortable chairs. Katulad nga ng sinasabi ko, compare ulit natin yung fast food between fast food and fine dining. Sa fine dining, kaya mas malalaki yung tables nila and chairs is para feel comfortable ka talaga while eating. And hindi lang yun. Kasi mostly yung mga foods na dumadating sa atin, di ba? Like, magkaiba kasing sinaserve na food between fast foods and fine dining. Sa fine dining, mostly meals na siya, naka-ready na siya. Compare mo siya sa fine dining na may course meal talaga. So, for example, tapos na akong kumain ng main course ko, nag-wait na ako ng dessert ko. So, pwede kong ilagay sa side yung dish ko, yung plate ko rather, habang nag-wait sa dessert ko. Kaya, design din sila na bigger compared sa ibang restaurants. And also, ang pinaka-consideration talaga rin doon is yung comfort ng tao. Next is safety. Restaurant design standards should require that there should be sufficient space between tables. Ay, oo nga pala. Meron tayo niyan sa building code natin pero hindi ko na siya provide dito kasi para makapag-focus tayo more on our topic. So, if gusto nyo, magpo-provide ako, kanino kaya pwede, ng space requirements between, for example, pag back-to-back yung chairs, yung space ng back of the chairs to the other back of the chair, yung space niya in between. Meron tayo nun sa building code. Kung gusto niyo magpo-provide ako, sinong pwedeng i-contact ko or ano.
Or you can email me na lang, then I will forward the file to all the students.
Okay, sige. Para at least may idea rin kayo na kapag ganito pala yung chair na gagamitin ko, kailangan ganito yung distance in between them. Pero ang provided kasi sa building code natin is the bare minimum lang siya. So, it's up to you kung pwede nyo pa siyang lakihan, pero hindi na siya pwedeng liitan na. Okay. Kasi for instance, di ba, there's an emergency and you need to evacuate the building quickly. Mas okay na yung may clear path tayo palabas ng building natin, yung hindi tayo matitrip, and yung mga unobstructed na pathways natin talaga to exit. So, kasi kadalasan, di ba, pag sa restaurant, marami talagang tables and chairs. Compared mo sa ibang structures, sabihin natin sa malls, unobstructed talaga yung pinaka-walkways niya. Compared mo sa restaurant na sinasalpakan natin ng tables, chairs, ganyan. So, dapat yung pagkaka-arrange pa rin natin ng tables and chairs natin is in a way, hindi niya naharangan yung exit natin. Okay? Para ma-ensure natin ang safety ng everyone if may emergency. Then lastly is the design style and elements. The design style you choose will greatly affect the behavior of the customers within your restaurant. Katulad nga ng sinasabi ko kanina, kung yung design mo is sobrang inviting talaga, sobrang relaxing talaga, yung mga malalaki talaga yung mga furnitures mo, then yung upuan mo, cushion talaga. Siyempre, maapektuhan niya na yung mindset ng tao na parang, ang sarap lang mag-chill. Or like, parang gusto ko pa mag-stay dito compared mo sa mga fast food restaurants na ang titigas ng upuan. Parang, gusto ko parang pagkakain mo, hindi mo na may isip na mag-stay pa ng sobrang tagal di ba? So yun, nakaka-affect yung design style and elements sa behavior ng tao sa behavior ng customers. Then it also set up the vibe for the customers. Especially these days. Mostly ang kino-consider natin when eating out is if Instagrammable ba siya, di ba? Correct or not? Kasi for example, kami ng partner ko, before kami mag-choose ng restaurant, magsa-search kami sa internet, no? Search kami famous restaurants in, sabihin natin, Quezon City. ang una namin talagang tinitignan is hindi yung menu. Ang tinitignan namin is yung exterior niya, kung maganda ba yung place, ganyan. So, nakaka-affect din talaga yung design natin with sa kung paano iti-treat ng customers yung restaurant natin, no? Parang nakaka-affect siya, nakakapanghatak siya or makakapanglayo ba siya ng mga customers rather. Then, in this 2020, napansin lang namin, ang modern trendy designs talaga sa restaurants is yung mga bold and striking colors. For example, yung image na nandito sa slide. Di ba parang dati, sino bang mag-aakala na magagamit mo yung super bold na pink na yan, super bold na blue na yan. Pero pag kinombine siya with elegant materials, like marble, like yung gold na stand, then haluan mo ng mga elements like yung bare elements lang. Talagang lumilitaw kasi yung yung furnitures natin. Talagang sobrang striking niya and sobrang inviting nung place. So, mostly sa designs, hindi lang sa restaurants nauuso talaga ngayon yung mga bold colors natin and yung mga elegant materials and earthy materials natin. Yun talaga ang trend this year. Okay. Next is part 3. Wait lang. Sorry. So, sa part 3 na tayo. Nakasunod ba lahat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Part 3 is a space planning na. Actually, ito yung pinakamadugo sa pag nag-restaurant design ka eh. Actually, restaurant is one of the most complicated structures eh. Kasi hindi lang naman dining yan, di ba? Meron tayong yung kitchen, which is sobrang tiring mag-design ng kitchen. So, for the space planning, there are 3 major parts of a restaurant. So, pag nag-space planning kayo, kailangan kino-consider nyo itong 3 major parts na to. Namely, first part is the dining area, which consists of entrance lobby, the reception, the waiting lobby, the dining space, and the point of sale, or the paying area. So, itong dining area natin is actually also the front of the house of our restaurant, no? And sila yung, kumbaga, welcoming committee ng restaurant natin. Next part is the kitchen area, kung saan yung cooking ginagawa lahat ng food preparation, which consists of the preparation area, the cooking storage, the utensils and equipments, and the storage for perishables and non-perishables goods. And lastly is the service and staff, which consists of electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC system na sinabi ko kanina, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, the surveillance, and the service entry and exit. So yung sa sinabi ko kaninang 60-40, 60% is this dining area. Then the 40% is the combination of kitchen and the service and staff area, or the back of the house. Basic requirements for restaurant design and floor plan. The entrance. Ito, kanina ko pang sinasabi, yung entrance. It usually provides the first impression for our restaurant. And kung nagde-design tayo, kung nagle-layout tayo, we should provide ample space that is welcoming and should evoke curiosity to come in and dine in. Kailangan mapipick mo yung interest ng customers mo. Kailangan entrance pa lang, ini-invite mo na sila ng aakit na. Then, it should be well maintained. It should also bring forth the theme of the restaurant. For example, dito sa image na nasa slide, entrance pa lang niya, malalaman mo na kung ano yung nasa loob eh. Alam mo na kung ano yung papasukin mo. Okay? Kapag ini-evaluate niya yung entrance niyo, you should focus on these components. 3 major components lang. Sorry. Does the design allow staff to greet people well? For example, in most Japanese restaurants, like Hanamaruken na lang, hindi na tayo lalayo. I don't know if familiar kayo doon sa restaurant na yun, but sa kanila kasi, yung entrance nila is unobstructed talaga and freely talaga yung entrance nila. Since yung style of greeting nila is sabay-sabay silang sumisigaw ng "Irashaimase, welcome to Hanamaruken." Di ba? Ganun yung nila eh. So, yung entrance nila is unobstructed. Then, your second consideration should be, does the entrance make customers feel welcome? For example, yung katulad ng pinakita ko kanina, yung 2 Starbucks. Yung dun ba sa first na Starbucks natin, feel welcome ka ba dun? Compared mo dun sa second Starbucks natin, na interweaving pa yung design ng wood nila, na parang ine-embrace ka na eh, nakakulang na lang, lumapit ka na talaga eh. So, yun, dapat i-consider din natin siya na inviting dapat. Hindi rin naman dapat super malaki na parang madadaganan yung tao. And lastly, yung entrance nyo ba is inaalaw ang customers and yung staff na mag-flow freely? Kasi sometimes sa ibang restaurants, mostly sa mga the ones inside the malls, di ba? Iisa lang yung entry and exit ng both customers and the servers or the staff. So dapat yung entrance is designed na big enough siya para yung flow ng tao in and out your restaurant is suwabe lang. Hindi nagkakabanggaan. And dapat may space. Sometimes, di ba, may space pa silang pinaprovide doon na parang small reception desk na parang ipapakita na yung menu. So, yung placement din ng small desk na yon or small reception na yon is dapat hindi nakaharang dun sa pathway natin or sa entry and exit point ng restaurant natin. Common siya sa mga malls. Kasi sa mga standalone naman na restaurants, or standalone meaning yung mga restaurants na itatayo within sa sariling site nila, kadalasan doon merong entry point ang mga staffs, different siya sa entry point ng mga customers. Okay, next. Dining room layouts. In dining room layouts, I subdivided it into 3 parts, which is the sitting area, the waiting area, and the POS terminals. The dining area of the restaurant is the soul of the place because yung mga customers natin, 98% of the time na i-spend nila sa loob ng restaurant mo is dito sa dining area na to. While designing the dining room layout, your primary aim should be that your customers are comfortable yung sitting area nila para mas ma-enjoy nila yung food nila. So, the first is the sitting area. The sitting area should be designed with at least 3 sizes of tables with the motive to accommodate small, medium, and large parties accordingly. So, kailangan pag magde-design ka ng sitting area mo, 3 variations yung tables mo. At least. Merong yung mga magde-date lang, meron yung mga for family, then meron yung for large parties. Kaya meron dapat tayong small, medium, and large. party-sized tables. So, sa window area side, kadalasan maganda maglagay doon ng small tables for 2 to 3 persons only. Similarly, the middle section can be best utilized for accommodating large parties. Then, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, magpo-provide na lang ako ng spaces between the tables sa inyo. I-send ko na lang, no? Then, there should be ample space that allows for the free and seamless movement of the servers. Like, yung area natin, kahit punuin natin siya ng table, i-maximize natin yung profit, walang problema. Pero at least, meron pa rin dapat siyang, pero at least, meron pa rin siya dapat enough space for the servers na makagalaw ng mas maayos, yung hindi matatapunan kung sino-sino, mga ganun. Then the next is the waiting area or reception area. Kailangan kino-consider din natin to kasi sometimes yung ibang restaurants hindi na nila pinapansin to, parang waiting area lang naman yan, hindi naman tayo kikita dyan, liitan na lang natin. Kasi hindi man palaging fully book ang restaurant nyo, kailangan kino-consider pa rin natin yung waiting area, yung design ng waiting area niya. Dapat hindi natin siya in-overlook sa design. Kasi what if peak season? For example, Valentine's. Diba? Sobrang hirap makahanap ng restaurant nun, diba? Na kung saan kayo magde-date. Sobra talaga. Kaya yung ibang tao, sa waiting area pa lang, doon na nila nalalaman kung magsistay pa ba sila to wait or maghahanap na sila ng ibang restaurant. Kasi sometimes mas nagsistay yung tao kapag sa waiting area pa lang comfortable na sila, diba? So, ayun, dapat kino-consider din natin siya. Kasi hindi man tayo, literally speaking, wala namang kumakain sa waiting area, nababawasan nababawasan man yung na-occupy na area for dining. Pero at least, mas napapakita natin yung human comfort and mas naiisip ng mga tao na balikan yun since waiting area pa lang nakuha mo na yung loob nila. And the POS terminals or the billing system areas, so kailangan separate siya with the sitting area. Kailangan may sarili talagang area yung POS terminals. Kailangan yung POS terminals natin is magkakasama. Hindi pwede yung bungi-bungi na nandito yung isa, nandito yung isa, nandito yung isa, nandito yung isa. Maguguluhan yung mga tao, as yung mga customers natin as well as the servers kung saan ba nila dadalhin to. And may chances din na mag-criss-cross yung paths between customers and the servers kapag pinaghiwa-hiwalay natin yung mga POS terminals natin. So, ayun yung dining room layouts natin. Yan yung 3 major parts niya. Okay, next slide is the kitchen. Ito na ang pinakamadigo sa lahat. Sometimes kasi talaga, for me as an architect, hindi ako basta-basta nagde-design ng kitchen area. Kasi different siya Depende talaga yan sa kung ano yung food na sinaserve mo For example na lang, may steakhouse kami na dinesign in MCS in Makati. Ewan ko kung familiar kayo doon. We literally interviewed the head chef na pagka-turnover namin ng restaurant. Talagang before kami mag-start sa design, kailangan yung client muna is nakapili na ng head chef. At least, you'll do an interview of the circulation inside your kitchen. Kasi mas mas kabisado nila yung working stations nila Alam nila kung kung saan sila magkukook ng food, kung anong katabi ba ng stove nila, kung gusto ba nila prep table or gusto nila isang ulit stove. Sila yung mas mas nakakaalam. Kaya leave it to them. Pagka hindi ka talaga familiar, talagang you should make an interview with the head chef. kadalasan pa nga dyan, yung ibang architect, talagang hindi sila kumukuha ng, talagang kumukuha pa sila ng kitchen consultant nila with regards sa designing ng kitchen natin. Kasi hindi rin talaga basta-basta yan. So in kitchen designs, you should greatly consider the views of the head chef talaga and the kitchen consultant. Kung yung head chef will talk more about the circulation inside the kitchen, ang ginagawa naman ng kitchen consultant is siya yung allocate ng equipment and ng mga gamit na ilalagay inside your kitchen. Wait lang for a while. Wait. Hello, sorry, I'm back. Naririnig niyo pa rin ako? Are you still with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, ayun nga, yung kitchen consultant natin, dapat meron din talaga tayo kasi sila yung nagpo-provide ng mga stainless natin, stainless sinks, stainless preparation table. Sila yung kadalasan din na nagpo-provide ng mga equipment, yung mga ganun. So, pag nalaman natin yung equipment na ibibigay nila sa atin, in combination with the views of the head chef, mas ma-allocate natin yung spaces inside our kitchen. Diba, pag binigyan na nila tayo, kunwari yung laki ng stove natin na ibibigay ni kitchen consultant is 1.2 meters by 0.60 meters. Mas mabibigyan natin siya ng magandang pwesto. Then, different types of restos kasi requires different kitchen consultants. For example, sa mga pastry restaurants which requires more of yung mga equipment nila is mga oven. Iba yung mga kitchen consultant na lalapitan natin compared sa mga steakhouse na mas heavy duty talaga yung equipment na ginagamit. So, ayun yung dapat yung i-remember. So, there are 4 different aspects that we should consider sa pag-design ng kitchen natin. Number 1 is the specific kitchen working zone. Specific kitchen working zone means na is divided into 4 parts. Namely, kitchen cooking area, the preparation area, the storage area for the dry and cold, and the washing area. Sa kitchen cooking area natin, it is one of the most critical zones of the kitchen area where the actual food preparations take place. All the equipments like burners, ovens, grills, tandoor, and other equipments needed for the operations pre-decided will have to be positioned in this area. That's why needed ang kitchen consultants since for the head chef, ang pinaka-concern niya lang talaga is mostly yung circulation, like I said before. Then, ang magbibigay sa atin ng mga dimensions ng mga equipments na gagamitin natin doon is si kitchen consultant. Then, kami as architects, kami mag-allocate ng spaces based sa nag-gather naming information. Next is the preparation area within your kitchen working zone. The preparation area, in this area, most of your kitchen preparation happens. Kaya nga siya kitchen preparation. Dito tayo nagpe-prepare ng mga ingredients natin. Dito tayo nagsaslice. Lahat ng mga equipments na kailangan natin for the preparation of food is dapat nandito. Tingnan nyo sa binabanggit ko dito ng specific kitchen working zone dun pa lang under kitchen, sobrang complicated na subdivided pa siya into 4 parts. Kasi dapat magkakaiba talaga sila ng pwesto. Yung para sa work na to is dapat magkakasama, then yung sa para sa work na to is dapat magkakasama para hindi rin nagkakabungguan yung mga tao inside the kitchen. Then the storage area where you store the dry and cold goods is dapat nakahiwalay din. And the washing area kung saan kayo nag-wash ng dishes. Kaya for example dito sa image na provided sa slide, kung mapapansin nyo, yung goods niya is nakahiwalay sa actual kitchen niya. Yung washing area niya is designed separately. Next aspect to consider in designing the kitchen is the circulation space. The layout shall be made in such a way that allows the kitchen staff to move in quickly, swiftly, and efficiently. Providing enough space is critical when it comes to kitchen design. Critical siya to avoid accidents as well. Kasi ano ba yung mga equipments at saka mga gamit na nasa loob ng kitchen? Mayroong mga sharp and pointy objects, mayroong mga too hot objects, mayroong mga too cold. Kaya maraming accidents ang nangyayari inside the kitchen. Kaya dapat mag-provide tayo ng enough circulation space for everyone na hindi sila magkakabungguan basta-basta, except na lang kung sasadyain nila. Then the third is proper ventilation. Ensure adequate ventilation in your restaurant kitchen as it is necessary for the health of your restaurant staff and also reduces the chances of various items being prepared in the kitchen to the dining area. So, para pasimplehin na natin, sobrang init sa kitchen. Kaya dapat maayos yung ventilation natin inside of it. Kasi kaya meron tayong tinatawag na plenum space or the space between the ceiling and the slab of the next floor. Meron tayong tinatawag na ganun para daanan siya ng ductings natin inside the kitchen. Sometimes exposed siya, di ba? Kasi uso yung mga industrial look. So, kapag exposed siya, basta i-ensure lang natin na may enough space siya na hindi abot ng hand natin kapag tinaas natin, na hindi abot ng reaching point natin kapag tinaas natin yung sa loob ng kitchen natin. May enough space for ducting para mas maayos yung ventilation inside the kitchen. Then lastly is, sa kitchen kasi, kasama na rin dyan yung staff quarters and pantry area. You may also choose to include an office, kahit small lang, then an employee's bathroom, or a break room in the back of the house. Next requirements for the restaurant design and floor plan is the restrooms. Ito, kadalasan, unang pasok pa lang ng customer sa hanapin agad, magtatanong sa waiter, nasaan ang CR. Hindi pa siya nakaka-order niyan, yan agad yung itatanong ha. So dapat, restrooms or comfort rooms, kaya siya tinawag na ganun, it should provide enough comfort or for the users. Hindi dapat sobrang dumi. Kasi kung pag sobrang dumi ba, comfortable ba yun sa inyo? Diba? Dapat well-maintained din ang restrooms natin. Kasi isa rin to sa mga na-overlook na ng ibang restaurant owners na iniisip nila, ay CR lang naman yan, di ko na pag-aaksayahan yan. Bakit ko pagagastusan yan? CR lang yan. Pero, honestly speaking, ito nga yung pinaka, I mean, not naman na the pinaka, no? Pero isa siya sa striking talaga in a restaurant na parang pag maganda yung CR, ang sarap balik-balikan din ng restaurant, di ba? Sometimes ganun kasi yung parang long-lasting yung impression niya na ang linis ng CR sa restaurant ng ganito, ang linis ng CR sa restaurant na ganito. Kasi dun mo malalaman kung malinis ba yung restaurant nila as a whole. Di ba? And the last basic requirements for restaurant design is the service area. Service area consists of the various functional needs and requirements for restaurant design. Dito napapasok yung mga electrical rooms natin, yung mga plumbing areas natin. Nakatago ba yung mga pipe natin? Yung mga tubo natin, nakatago ba siya? And dapat mag-provide tayo ng electrical room requirement yan, especially sa restaurant. Kasi high voltage, mostly yung mga equipments na ginagamit dyan sa kitchen. So, dapat meron tayong areas provided for services. Then, dapat kung ano yung sasabihin ni electrical engineer sa atin, na ganito yung space requirement niya, bigay natin. Huwag kayong manghihinayang sa space na yun. Kasi yung space na yun, na ibibigay natin sa kanila is para naman mag-long last yung restaurant natin. So, huwag niyong panghihinayangan yung mga ganun. Especially sa HVAC natin. Kasi sometimes may mga malalaki pa silang blower na requirement. So, pag nanghingi sila ng space, go lang. Mga gas area natin. Separate. Kasi mostly yung gas area natin, gas farm area natin, mostly separate siya sa restaurant natin. Nakalabas naman siya. So, bigyan natin ng enough area yung services na yan. Huwag natin silang ipagpasawalang bahala lang because sila rin yung tumutulong sa restaurant natin to continue its operations, di ba? So yun, dapat i-consider din talaga natin siya. So those are the 5 basic requirements for restaurant design and floor plan. So mapunta tayo sa flow layout sa flow ng customers natin. So for fine dining and casual, start tayo with the customers, then of course, the parking and reception kung may dala silang kotse or not. Then, waiting area or the buffer area, ito na yung transition or pwede na rin nating tawagin na the entrance, the gateway to your restaurant. Then after that, after pumunta ng customer sa waiting, after niya maghintay, pupunta na siya sa dining area, then the billing and payment, then exit. Ganyan yung common na flow for fine dining and casual restaurant. For the fast food and sometimes sa ibang casual restaurant, ang flow niya is customers, then parking and reception, then waiting area and payment. Kung mapapansin niyo yung difference between fine dining and casual, no? Sa fast food kasi, mag-order ka na while waiting. Then bago ka pumunta sa dining area, then na-exit ka na agad. Then dito sa fine dining, bibigay muna nila sa'yo lahat. Papakainin ka nila, bubusugin ka nila, at saka ka nila sisingilin. Bago ka exit. So yan yung common flow ng restaurant designs natin. Then, tapos na tayo sa space planning. Now, for our last part, the new normal of modern restaurant. Since may pandemic ngayon, meron na rin new normal sa flow and sa design ng restaurant natin. So, kung dining in ka, what would you expect? First is the non-contact temperature check. Sometimes, nandito na rin kasama yung mga foot bath natin before tayo pumasok ng restaurant. So, dapat nag-allocate na rin ng area mostly para dyan. Na hindi cramp yung tao. Kasi di ba meron tayo maintain na social distancing which is 1 to 2 meters. Next is the contact tracing. So, kailangan may area provided din tayo where people can write their basic information para mas mapadali yung contact tracing natin. Number 3, you should always wear face shields kapag papasok ng restaurant. Kasi hindi ka nila papapasukin hanggat hindi ka nakasuot ng ganyan. Number 4 is the 1 seat apart or 1 table apart requirement for the layout of your plans. So, ang distance compared sa dati, ang distances ng tables and chairs natin with each other is mas malaki na. Katulad nito, halos 50% na lang ng total occupant ang pwedeng pumasok inside the restaurant. Single-use menu. Kadalasan din, ang ibang restaurants, nagpo-provide sila ng mga single-use menu na pagkatapos, di-dispose na rin nila agad. Then, provide ulit ng bago for the next customers, then dispose agad. To ensure the health of each customers inside the restaurant. So, coping up with COVID-19, kadalasan, yung mga restaurants is merong drive-thru. Most common yan sa lahat. Kaya mas safe tayo pag drive-thru kasi pag inside ka ng restaurant ngayon, di ba, parang sobrang cramp, parang nakakatakot. Baka yung air na nalalanghap mo, hindi mo alam if what. So iba, nag-opt out to just drive-thru. Next is the curbside pickup. Ewan ko kung may familiar kayo dito or may na-encounter na kayong restaurants na nagpo-provide ng ganito. Pero mostly, pinoprovide siya sa restaurants na walang drive-thru. Yung mga curbside pickup, yung magpa-park ka, then mag-curbside ka, then may lalapit sa'yo na server, then iti-take yung order mo, papasok siya, lalabas siya, ibibigay yung food mo. At least, na-ensure niya rin yung health ng customers natin. Kaya, mostly, ang tanong ngayon, saan tayo kakain? Saan tayo magpapadeliver? Yun na ang bagong tanong ngayon, hindi na kung saan tayo kakain. Kaya, ang Papa John's, which is one of our clients, is nagpapadesign sila mostly mga express stores na lang. Minimal ang dine-in, almost no dine-in sila actually. So, kwento ko lang rin na nakwento sa akin of one of their staffs na parang last year talaga, they plan, di ba last year hindi pa naman uso yung COVID. Yung wala pang pandemic last year So last year, ang plan nila is tanggalin na lahat ng dine-in restaurants nila, palitan ng express stores, kaya ayun ang ginawa namin. Lahat ng restaurants, dinemolish yung mga dine-in restaurants, yung mga malalaking restaurants. Ewan ko kung familiar kayo sa Papa John's sa may Blue Bay Walk, wala na rin siya. Di ba malaking restaurant yon? Papa John's sa may Calao, sa may Manila, wala na rin siya doon. Kasi pinalitan nila, ang pinagawa nila sa amin lahat is mostly express stores lang or yung mga maliit na stores lang. So, ang nangyari ngayon, pandemic time, wala. Parang hindi sila nalugi. Wala silang nagsara na store kasi puro express stores lang yung pinoprovide nila, di ba? So, alam niyo yun, parang sabi nga sa amin ng client namin, nung kausap namin sa Papa John's, no? Parang ang galing nga rin daw na hindi naman nila in-expect na ganun yung mangyayari, pero at least tamang-tama yung ginawa nila. Then, that concludes our talk for this afternoon. Stay healthy. Thank you.
All right.
So, are there any questions?
So there are plenty of questions here in the chat box section.
Sige. Magbasa tayo. Iwan na kasing questions.
Yes.
Okay Okay guys, so anyone who would like to ask
John?
questions?
Eto,
John
mag
Mendes.
To Architect
Sir.
John Riego. May question po ba kayo? You wanted to ask?
Ito sa chat may mga questions. Pwede kong basahin isa-isa yung questions sa chat.
Okay,
So,
so mayroong
from-
question dito. Ay, sige po. Sige po, Sir John.
from John Guile.
Gail po.
Gail, from John Gail Cruz. Sir, may I ask po if advisable to build a 3-story building for my casual restaurant? Will it affect the customer? So, kung ang tanong mo sa akin is if maka-affect siya sa customers natin, obviously yes. Kasi kapag magda-dine ka in the 3rd floor, parang nakakatamad. Gugutumin mo muna yung sarili mo bago ka mag-dine, di ba? Parang hindi siya comfortable in terms of sa customer side. Pero kung want mo i-maximize yung profit mo, since casual restaurant ka lang naman, maybe you can do it. Actually, ginagawa siya ng Jollibee along Pinoval. Diba, ang taas ng ano doon, ng Jollibee. And also ata sa Dapitan, alam ko 4 floors ata sila. Actually, okay lang. Okay siya. Pero, hindi siya ganun ka-comfortable for the customers.
Okay po. Thank you, sir.
So, next question is from Joshua Bogador. Sir, what is the ideal space per square meters for cafe and pub? Thank you in advance. So, first of all, katulad ng diniscuss ko kanina, depende yan sa location mo eh. Kasi, for example, kung ang location mo is sa Tagaytay, kung ang location mo is sa Tagaytay and you expect na maraming customers yung cafe mo, actually, magpo-provide ka ng bigger space for your cafe and pub. Then, kung sa mga small areas ka naman, hindi masyadong busy areas, malulugi ka kung malaki yung area na ipoprovide mo for your cafe. Correct? So, depende pa rin yan sa target market mo and sa location ng area mo.
Okay, Architect, meron akong question dito, Architect.
Okay po.
Okay, coming from Mr. Riego. Sorry po, coming from Christian Puhol, 3rd year students. Gusto po sana namin malaman kung anong ibang application yung pwedeng gamitin kapag halimbawa walang AutoCAD na application kapag gagawa po ng floor plan.
Aha, kapag gagawa ka ng floor plan, so software ang kailangan nyo, no? For the software naman, kasi actually hindi advisable na gumamit ng depende na lang kung sobrang galing mo in terms of Photoshop. Kasi meron ding dimensions yung Photoshop eh. Pwede kang makagawa doon ng basic plans, pero wala kang mga template ng mga furnitures. Kasi sa AutoCAD kasi, provided na may mada-download ka sa internet na templates for tables and chairs, template for sabihin natin some other kitchen equipments, sa ibang mga sink. So, hindi ko ina-advise. Actually, meron namang ibang software. Hindi lang AutoCAD. Meron tayong Revit, meron tayong SketchUp. Maraming mga architectural softwares na may mga free trial naman for students. So, siguro, try to learn the basics na lang rin. Pero, kung expert talaga kayo sa Photoshop, you can do naman sa Photoshop. As long as you provide pala scale proportionality under, na parang scale representation lang, na for 1 meter mag-provide lang kayo ng kahit simple box lang for a representation. Yung 1 meter mo is ganito kalaki para at least yung dimension natin is proportion pa rin. Ayun.
Thank you. Meron pa sir, architect na question dito. From Moises Stacer ng 30 students under na culinary craft. I'm quite confused po kasi sa establishment na may mga table and chairs din sa labas ng isang restaurant. Part pa rin po ba yun ng dining area o may ibang term na tinatawag doon sa labas?
Yung mga dining area natin doon is
So,
tinatawag
yung
natin.
mga
Ang mga outside dining natin, kadalasan tinatawag natin siya as al fresco. Part pa rin siya ng dining area natin kasi sa isang, ganito kasi yan, no? Sa isang lot, meron tayong, yung isang lot na yun, babawasan pa natin siya ng setbacks. Hindi natin mamamaximize yung lot natin na gusto nyo from point to point magagamitin nyo for your restaurants. No, may mga requirement yung building code natin dyan na we should provide enough parking space para sa restaurant natin. So yung alfresco nga or yung outdoor dining na tinatawag natin, kasama siya sa 60% nung sinabi ko kanina na included for dining area natin.
Thank you. Another questions, architect from Lorena Consay.
Okay.
Under the culinary management track, we are planning to make Harry Potter themed cafe and pub for our project in ergonomics. Usually po, how much po kayo pwedeng abutin sa pag-establish ng cafe and pub if nasa 40 square meter po yung area?
So, sige, tuturuan ko na rin kayo ng basic estimates na lang for your restaurant, no? Para may idea rin kayo. Kadalasan sa projects natin ngayon, kapag itong ibibigay kong estimate is hindi included yung furniture na gagamitin natin. For structure pa lang siya itself, no? So, for the 50 square meters, kadalasan ang multiplier natin dyan is 25 to 35,000. So, kung i-compute natin siya, calculator. 50 square meters times, sabihin na natin, sobrang high-end ng restaurant nyo, no? Base na tayo sa 35,000. 1.7. Kung high-end yung restaurant nyo or yung pub nyo rather. Pero kung simple lang naman, pwede naman tayo mag-base sa 20 to 25,000. Ayan. So kung hindi tayo masyadong choosy, i-base natin siya for 20,000, 1 million. Kasi for cafes and pubs kasi, important pa naman dyan yung interior natin, no? Yung finishes natin. Kaya siguro yung i-allocate natin dyan ng budget is around 25 to 30 per square meters. Next.
Okay, so, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
John.
Sir, for further question, you may chat the queries and concerns at the chat box section below, and we will collate it and send answers via email. So we will move on po.
Okay, sige, no problem naman.
Yan. So, thank you, Architect Don Vincent Riego po. Riego. Thank you, sir. So, for the awarding of the certificate, may we call on the Assistant Program Head of the HRM Department, Mr. Eugene Emmanuel Benicta.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very active session for our ergonomics and facility planning students.
Thank you.
So I am here to award the certificate of appreciation to Architect John Vincent Riego for his valuable contribution as guest speaker during the Hotel and Restaurant Management Series professional learning sessions for future tourism and hospitality leaders with his topic, the modern restaurant design and layout, given this 30th day of September 2020 at Far Eastern University, Manila. Signed by our Dean, Dr. Joy Sheila B. Era, okay, the Dean of the Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management. So thank you very much, sir. Okay, for more questions, we will email you the concerns of the students.
Thank you so much for your warm welcome, and thank you so much for inviting me to share my knowledge. Alam ko marami pang gustong magtanong kasi maraming interested din with the topic. So, ganun na nga lang, i-forward nyo na lang sa akin through email, then i-answer ko sila lahat. Gagawin ko lahat para ma-answer ko sila.
Thank you very much,
Lahat ng
sir.
questions niya. Thank you.
It
Thank
seems
you so
that
much.
you had a very interesting topic for our students. That's why they have lots of
yung
time.
interest nila.
Yes,
So,
thank you po.
You can freely ask me naman, no? So, send me na lang the link. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
So that concludes our first part of the lecture series for the ergonomics and facility planning subject. Okay, so guys,
Just remember that you guys are still here.
if you are still around here in
And
the
then you are
webinar,
ready. And
guys,
if they are ready, right?
right. Are you still up? Because I am ready for the next topic. Okay, guys. All right, I see Arthur Lennon putting a thumbs up. Okay, Carrie, Alfonso.
Doc Pam is putting his thumbs
Okay.
up. Her thumbs
All right.
up. Wow.
Okay, they're still here.
Let's go.
Okay, so let's move on. For our second topic, entitled Building Resilience and Adaptive Digital Supply Chain for Long-Term Smart Manufacturing Strategy, if we ask Dr. Anna Punson on the street to introduce to us our distinguished guest.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. John and Ms. Des. So good afternoon to our dear speakers, to our Dean, ITHM academic managers, and to our student participants for today. And thank you for joining us. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our second speaker for today. He is known as a supply chain, procurement, and logistic management icon in Asia, and is known for his advancement in ethics, excellence, and enablement in the supply management field. He worked for China Bank as an expert and import analyst way back 1986 to 1989, and then he became the logistic head for the year 1989 to 1992 under at the Procurement and Supply Institute of Asia, or the PASIA, and the Chief Executive Officer of Shared Services Corporation and Transprocure Corporation. To talk about building resilience and adaptive digital supply chain for long-term smart manufacturing strategy, let us all welcome our resource speaker, Mr. Charlie P. Villaseñor. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very kind and generous introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. I know that a lot of you may be wondering why I took this opportunity also as well when invited to speak before all of you on the area of a very important aspect. You know, I always get to talk to a lot of organizations, and now that we are in the pandemic, I hope you are well. But when people ask me, how do we get out of the pandemic? Is this going to be a situation that we can get out easily? My answer is really no. So don't expect so much right now, because we're really undergoing significant trials in this particular area. There are two things that can really help us in enabling ourselves to survive this. Of course, one is the vaccine, and the other one is supply chain management. It's very important for students like you to actually get to adapt to the new normal, because when things are over, a lot of things will have changed in the way you run your restaurants, tourism, manufacturing. Everything, as you will get to notice later on, are all dependent on supply chain. So let me probably approach my presentation in a way that it's educational, but it's also practical, because even with your own daily lives, as you venture out in many of the things that you do, even to your household, and even to the business or to the work that you're actually going to embark on eventually, a lot of it is pretty much hinged over what supply chain is all about. So next, please. So the topic seems to be very fitting for the time being, but as you know, I spent a lot of time building my own corporate infrastructure, having led an institute which is the largest in Asia, and also having built the largest e-commerce company in Southeast Asia as well. So I'm quite excited because these new things are really for the millennials, for the new the new breed of professionals that's going to come into the workforce. So my background is all a while about supply chain. When people ask me why did you enter supply chain, I said it was not really meant to be. I was a business graduate. I didn't know where to go, and I just rolled into it when I actually got to see that nobody wants a job in supply chain. But I could tell you right now that supply chain is the most highest pacing job and the most secure job in the world right now and in the future. So we get to see a lot of transformation happening in this particular space. And hopefully you'll find out why that situation is for people who are dwelling into the supply chain arena. Next, please. I'm trying to help the entire region or Asia really get to upshape and get educated in supply procurement and logistics. We're even working with the government right now and trying to put an application that everybody that's working around this particular space should have a certification or should be licensed, just like doctors, medical practitioners, lawyers, midwife, architects. It seems like supply chain has been left behind as not to be licensed or be a certified profession. So the other side of my life actually is also running a solutions and services company where we actually help many companies around the globe to be good on this particular area by giving them some consultation work, training their people, providing a lot of BPO services. We are also a BPO services. We are not a call center, but we are actually a BPO services on the area of supply chain management, which is very unique because we don't have any competitors on this area. And we get to implement a lot of technology. So I'm sure that you may be wondering where technology is actually headed because the topic title seems to be positioned and projected that way. So that's a type of life, and I enjoy it so much. So when I actually was told that I have actually 30 minutes to share insights on this very interesting topic, I told myself maybe I'll divide it into 3 or 4 major sections so that you tend to see where I'm coming from and how this could be potentially helpful for your development as well. So I thought that one, I should talk about COVID, right? The impact to the new business and why supply chain is important. I don't know how many units or courses do you actually get into supply chain, but what is in the book is very different from what is in the actual realities of business. So let me probably get into the realities of the business. So how can organizations or individuals like you be resilient, and how can you actually embrace digitalization? And how are companies really fortifying their supply chains? You know what? There's a lot of restaurants, tourism that are all shut down right now. It will take time before they reopen, even with the vaccine. And for those who have already gone away, maybe they'll never come back into the horizon. But there seems to be a growing, segment where people will move on areas where they will actually grow and use that experience to actually, fortify or improve their operations. Because the restaurants will be different. Tourism will be much more different because there are technologies available as we speak right now. Next, please. So let's take a look. The first thing that ever happened to us when we heard in December that there was an outbreak, I immediately went out on TV and I told them, since there's an outbreak, we should prepare because it will affect lives, security of people, health, and more so, the economy will really get to be significantly and adversely affected. And that's true. As you can see, we haven't flattened the curve. We are facing a lot. And if you watch CNN and all of those ANC or any, the real problem, as you imagine, is it's really supply chain. They said we don't have enough doctors. It's part of the supply chain by making availability because we are working on capacity constraints. We don't have health workers. We don't have PPEs. We don't have a lot of things that we actually need. So we're facing a lot of constraints. So we see a lot of shortages also in demand and supply. These shortages are sometimes imported from other countries, but countries are going to self-serve themselves before they serve other countries. So we have to look at it very closely, because the supplies are getting to be available in very difficult manner. If you're related to restaurants, there's so much surplus right now. I know I have a lot of friends who are closing down their restaurants and are throwing away even a lot of their equipments, because keeping these equipments are just taking a lot of storage space, and they still have to pay for storing these items. So they're quite worried on how they're actually really going to cope up going forward. Again, supply chain, as you will see later on. The global trade and economy from the recession to depression. Everybody thinks this is a very difficult time. I don't want to be the prophet of doom, but we are just on round one. Wait after 6 months on how difficult the situation is going to be, even with the vaccine available. When companies close, when people get laid off, companies doesn't sprout up just by an instant and provide jobs and opportunities. It takes time for them to recover. It takes time to reset up, and it takes time for them to reset the business going forward. So there's a significantly tremendous impact that is being experienced by companies and organizations. And I'm sure some of your parents, some of your siblings may have lost their jobs already as we speak right now. Next, please. This sign was taken from a restaurant, just to be very honest about it. This is what restaurants are putting, because simply they cannot keep up. The first thing that they found out without them knowing it, they don't have any more money, and they can't even pay up their salaries or their employees, or particularly their supplier. Contactless society will not come, is there to stay. Even in our BPO companies, we're 100% afraid of going back to the office. We can operate using Zoom, technology, and the like. But in business, even in restaurants and hotels, there are two parts of the game, the buyers and the sellers. So if your suppliers are down, they won't be able to serve you. And if you're unable to serve, you cannot operate. If you cannot operate, you cannot pay the salaries of your employees. So what do? You have to continuously lay off or close the business. So the shortages of labor is also coming along the way. If we don't contain this virus, people are not going to be confident enough to eat in places or to actually be available and interrelate with each other. There's going to be a lot of sourcing and supply issues. The biggest problem that I see, the next biggest crisis that this country or the world is going to face is what I call food security and supply. The virus will get into our lungs. The virus will it's going to be not on the food, but on the transportation of this food. So there's going to be issues that we have to anticipate, and how do we actually get to manage it before it actually happens. Inventory is going to be out there, no? A lot of inventory, a lot of tables, chairs, a lot of cooking, equipments out there, ready for disposal. There's a lot of excess. In some areas there's a lot of shortages. Where will the restaurants really happen? How they're actually going to review and remodel their business? You will find out more and more government policies, law around the world, not only in the Philippines, is going to be put in place, which it will make it more difficult for businesses to operate on and to comply with the regulatory requirements. In restaurants, there's a lot of regulatory requirements already, right? The physical distancing, curfew hours, and all of those things are being monitored. So in business, there is something as we call peak and valleys. A lot of work or no work or very small type of work. So we need to make sure that we respond based on the timing on where the business is actually available. And we call that capacity constraints management. Because there are situations na ang daming trabaho, pero there are also situations na walang negosyo. So how do you actually balance it so that you don't spend so much when you don't have a lot of businesses? But when there's a lot of business, how do you actually supply it with the right resources? Next, please. This is very latest, no? I'm sharing this to you because this is a research that was done by only 2 weeks ago was released. Even 1 week ago was released actually. This is a research that was done by PricewaterhouseCoopers and the Management Association of the Philippines. The Management Association of the Philippines, which I am part, is the associations for CEOs of the top 1,000 corporations of the country. So when the CEOs were asked, is our business going to contract, in 2020? Obviously, 70% believes that the economy is going to further go down, which is really very frightful. Because when they were asked, how many of you thinks that the business will close by around losses, will have a loss of around 10%, around 19%, sabi nila. Those who estimate revenue losses of 30% is around 36. Mas matindi pa. And if you combine the 30 to 50% perception of losses, it's more than 50%. So this is really very alarming, So we're moving from a very difficult position to a much more difficult perception. And this is not employees talking. These are the people paying our salaries or paying your salaries or setting up their businesses or maintaining the operations. This is what the leaders of the land, particularly in business, are perceiving to what would be the outlook of the economy. No? So let's get to the next slide, please. But when the CEOs are asked, they are being asked, sabi nila, what is going to be your priority? What actions will the business owners take? Very outstanding ang result. 80% says, wala kaming choice, but we have to cut costs or create cost containment actions. But equally important, 80% din ang nagsabi, digitalization is the way forward. When I was eating the other month in one of the restaurants, you're not allowed to hold the menu. You have to scan the QR code, and that's where you place your order. Minsan you're not used to it, but digitalization cuts across different industries, including restaurants and tourism and hotel. But a lot of these companies are saying, they all think that 62% of them thinks that the workplace safety measures are going to be much more important. And so with restaurants and hotels, if that's the case. 60% thinks that a lot of people will work remotely. That's going to impact restaurants because people are not going to eat in restaurants. They probably are better off, ordering or cooking their own food at home. 55% will work remotely. So on and so forth. But the thing that's actually accelerating is how do you actually get to automate the business process? So most of these people are going to eventually automate a lot of business aspect. Running business, running hotels, running restaurants, they think that the only work that you do is serving the food or cooking the food. They don't know that behind that, you need to maintain procurement, you have to maintain inventory, you have to have the right freezers for storage. There's a lot of back office, which is predominantly your total cost. The cost is not just the food that you serve the people. It's what happens before the food is actually served to the customers, isn't it? So your cost is very much driven by that back office or that preparation. Things like contactless payment, things like artificial intelligence, things like robotics are going to give a significant interplay on how we operate our restaurants. Last year, I ate in a Singaporean hotel and restaurant. There were no human being waiters. There are robots that was actually serving the food on the table and giving me coffee. And they use such thing as conversational AI to take your order, process it, and check you out after you're done with your stay in the restaurant. Is this going to happen? I think it's going to happen because this technology is going to get cheaper over years. Next, please. Let me give you a perspective of supply chain. Why is this important? Because in a manufacturing, And if you look at hotels, restaurants, they are typically also a manufacturing entity. Mas maliit lang nga. Because in a restaurant, for example, or in a manufacturing environment, medyo iba sila. Pero still, when you run a restaurant, you have to plan for your materials, for your people, for your resources. What time are you going to open? What time are you going to close? You're going to source for materials for your people and the like. You're going to make and cook it. You're going to maybe serve it on the table or serve it outside as a takeout. Or some areas, you actually have to receive, returns as well if there's any particular problem. Or you actually have things to dispose that you need to return back to your suppliers. So that's how difficult supply chain is all about. There are three things that makes company successful. If can you go back, please? Not at this one. Companies it's not going to compete on how their restaurants are just as beautiful as it is, or their business on how good their business looks like. Companies are going to compete and be successful based on how they run their own supply chain, because there's gonna be a differentiating factor. If you focus on supply chain improvements, then it's actually going to help you better. Next, please, because this is where the money and competitiveness stays. In supply chain management, especially now, we actually get to find more challenges. Sabi nila, supply chain is getting the lowest price. No, this is not the case. Supply chain management is all about managing risk. Even if you're running a hospital, a hotel, or a restaurant, it's not just looking at revenue. Tapos na yung mga days na we always want to exceed revenue or to meet our sales achievements. That were the time na konti pa ang restaurants. Pero the competition right now is so high that everybody is setting up. They have money to set up. They have, successful people have money to invest in those types of businesses. But the thing that they're really focusing on is managing risk. And risk is all over. There are internal risks and there are external risks. So companies are focusing on how do they differentiate in the market? What value do they create? And another piece of action would be cost management. If, in cost management, this is important because revenue minus expenses equals profit. So they need to make sure that they should actually manage the cost side of the business. It's not only growing sales. You can have so much sales, but if your cost is not in order, then you're not going to make any dividends for the shareholders or for the owners of your particular company. Next, please. That is the role of supply chain. So the supply chain is in charge on trying to help, many organizations. It's really what they call ROI. Get the return on investment, you have a lot of things that you get to fix. Ang supply chain is nothing else but working capital management. This is how you manage your money for your particular company or for your business or your personal business if you actually own the restaurant or the company by yourself. In this country, we need a lot of supply chain management. Diba? People are asking, ano ang plano? Because if we don't have good national supply chain management, how can we make sure that the hospital are running properly? How do we ensure that we don't have lacking PPEs or medicines or what have you? And because supply chain does three things. It creates, saving lives of people. It creates peace and order so that the food chain will continue to happen. And it supports big businesses. Because even SME organization needs good supply chain. Because if the SMEs are not around, there will no big companies around. Because the SMEs are a good number of suppliers for the bigger companies. Next, please. So it's just so important that organizations, businessmen, regardless of how small you are, it's going to be based out on how you actually manage this particular important segment of your business. Just to say that many people who know supply chains are the ones leading companies today. Let's take a look at, for example, in front of me right now, I'm using iPad or Apple phone. The CEO of Apple is Tim Cook, who actually came from the supply chain management function of Apple. So those who understand supply chain management are likely to become the leaders of your organization. Next, please. Um, you know, it's going to be a domino effect. You know, when one company is affected, he affects his customers and he affects his suppliers, right? And as we see many companies starting to close, more companies are going to be affected because they're part of the supply chain end to end. Yan ang tinatawag namin bullwhip effect. We are all interrelated. If I am a manufacturer or if I am a restaurant, if I close, what happens? I stop ordering my food ingredients or my chicken, meat, vegetable, or so I stop. When I stop, those companies that is reliant on me doesn't get any more orders from me. When you lay off people, they don't get money to buy. So it spreads out. We are all interconnected. So that's more reason that we should actually work together. Sabi nila, magbabay Filipino ba tayo o buy tayo ng sourcing globally? We have to take a lot of look into this because we need to balance, you know. When you buy chicken that is produced locally, it's more expensive from buying chicken that is sourced globally, you know. So if there's a big disparity, where do you go? You go where the best quality and the best price is going to be. And if we are not the best price supplier and quality supplier for chicken, then we lose our business because companies will not buy for something that is not within quality and also not within the price that they're actually expecting. Because if they have higher price, they're going to be higher in terms of price offering to the market and they cannot compete. So it's very important that companies takes a look at their supply base going forward. Next, please. Ito naman yung why is it important? It's very important that companies become resilient by applying digitalization. This is what they're doing. Companies are trying to increase how resilient they could face their supply chains. Kasi marami na. They go for dual sourcing. They try to increase inventory para wag sila ma-outstock. They look at suppliers that they don't get to use before. So they are doing everything to really cope up with the business. Some of them are trying to centralize, you know. Some of them are trying to put a process that is going to make sure that they're making accurate decisions based on timely information. A lot of them are using this opportunity to train their people. Ngayon, mahina ang negosyo. Puro training yan. So that when the economy goes back in due time, they are stronger. Those companies who survives this pandemic or this crisis will be there. They're not just looking for profiting right now. To survive is enough during this time because times are really very difficult. But there are need to hire more better talents. And if possible, they are looking at outsourcing because outsourcing is an opportunity also to get the best-in-class practice or execution, which is not easily available from your own respective business. Diba? Your transportation is outsourced. Your mail and courier is outsourced. Diba? Marami nang ina-outsource yan, you just don't know it. Why do we outsource? Because the providers here are good at doing things for us. They have the scale, the expertise, and the resources. Next, please. So companies are looking at tinatawag nilang VUCA, di ba? Companies would, sabi nila, very volatile ngayon, nakakatakot. There's so much uncertainty, what's going to happen. The business is so complex, you don't know where to go, you don't have enough customers. And also, you know, it's ambiguous, you know, there's a confusion going on. But people, companies, and businessmen has to really create a lot of new things. Everybody has to have a vision. Everybody has to understand what to do next. Everybody has to be clear on their goals. And dun sa CEO survey, one thing stood out. The new companies are requiring new skills from the workforce. And the number one skill that is important is communication. So it's communication is very important. And the other skill that's highly important is agile or agility. How fast are you able to connect or to adapt into the new ways of doing things? Next, please. So let's talk a little about building resilience and digitalization. Let's let's move, please. Let's talk about some of these best practices. You know, many of your organization, depending on small or medium you are, or even if you have a family, make sure that you have your strategy. You know, because it's about success, and success is driven out of people. How do you fire up the people to really do the right thing? Are your processes in place? Because your processes, any surplus or processes or any activity that is not needed is costing you something. And what are the tools that you are actually using to actually get to implement it? So, mga companies ngayon, they strategize, they look at these three areas. In fact, it's not only that, they look at the fourth area, which they call ESG, which stands for environment, society, and governance. They have to be sustainable in their practices. Next, please. And restaurants or hotels who are practicing good sustainability are going to be more sought after by consumers. But those who are not are going to be shied away by consumers. So just to tell you that, you know, even though you are a grant, I don't know, I think I saw in your chat na meron kayong procurement class or course. I don't know, but the importance of supply chain leaders are getting to be heightened. But the problem for us business people, we cannot find people that are educated and are talented in this particular area. So the challenge for business is hiring them. But the more important challenge is when they are good, they immediately shift to the next company who would pay them better. So retaining talent for supply chain professionals is going to be tough for many companies. They will know that it's not accounts payable, you know, it's not marketing is going to be the most important career. They are starting to see that people in the supply chain are one of the most sought after, you know, profession or expertise in the particular organization. So one area that is of a concern there is the developing the skills of people who are into this job. It's not enough what they learn inside within the company, but there's a lot of information and new knowledge. And this new knowledge are evolving very fast. It's not even written on the book, but it's already being applied. And that's the way it's going to happen as they actually try to compete with each other. Companies are going to compete on their supply chains, not only on the product or the services that they actually get to provide. Next, please. So continuing talent development is key, but the talent development here is not about classroom engagement. More and more leaders of companies, when we work with them, they like things that is more hands-on. They are more tailored for their particular company needs. Can you imagine? This is your generation. 80% of the supply chain teams will be either millennial or Generation Z by 2025. That's just 5 years away. Imagine 5 years away from now, 80% will be you who are Generation Z and millennial. And the way you want to learn is not about going to be in classrooms. The way you're going to learn is going to be using online systems. You know, so I think napabilis tayo lalo. Without the COVID, this prognosis came already, or this anticipation came already. Nagka-COVID pa, nagka-social distancing pa, nagka-physical distancing, nagka-pandemic pa, and you know, there could be additional pandemic coming in. You know, permutations. So the more online, you know, engagement like this is going to be much more in effect. The world has changed so much. I cannot even comprehend that these are all happening right now. Parang lahat ng problema nagkasabay-sabay. But the world is trying to keep up also by changing as fast as they could as well, just to survive with the current environment. Next, please. So there are a lot of best practices in supply chain. They don't really teach this in school. But these are the more practical implementations. The problem is like many people inside the supply chain doesn't know how to do it, you know. So we need a lot of training people on how to do data master data management, or what we call supply chain analytics, or what we say demand-driven supply chain programming. Probably they've heard about inventory planning, but there are more developments now on forecasting. Maybe they were taught about purchasing, But purchasing is in 1960s. If they are still using the word purchasing, medyo behind talaga. What is being done by companies is what we call strategic sourcing. Because purchasing is easy, it's like buying. But strategic sourcing, they look at the supply market, they look at the risk segments on how you buy things. You look at the most advantageous deals, not just on the most lowest price. So there's a lot of science behind it, and there's a lot of practical applications. Sa logistics naman, there's a lot of things that is very important here. The Uberization of logistics is going to happen. And this thing is moving. There's a lot of talent that is required here. Nakita nyo naman, sino na lang ang nabubuhay ng negosyo dito except Shopee, Lazada, or what have you. All online. And this all online are needing more and more people. There is an article that I read last week. Amazon, ang pinakamurang sweldo ng Amazon, or in the average, they published this last week, is every year their employees will tend to get $150,000 US. Mas 150, mukhang 7 million pesos yun. Di ba pang sweldo yun ng presidente? That is how committed they are to pay their people in this particular area. And that will grow. And that will affect us. And I think that's an opportunity as well. Next, please. So companies would need to create a game plan. I'm not going to go through this, but what I'm trying to tell you that you can actually get to see, the companies are trying to combat, nasa warfare. We are in a war right now. And war is won through better logistics, di ba? You know that. All of the wars, itong COVID na to is like a war. So we have to combat this properly. Dapat strategic ang approach natin dito. But we need to have a plan for the next 3 to 6 months. We need to have a plan from 6 to 18 months. And we have to have a plan from 18 to 36 months. I'm going to tell you right now, even schools, we have a lot of customers who are schools. I cannot mention it because they are also schools. But they are trying to implement electronic bidding or electronic procurement because they wanted to really make sure that they save as much money as they can. And they don't want to talk about it. Why? If they talk about it, they know that the other universities or schools will copy them. But they wanted to become a leader in their respective sector. Next, please. So, sales and operations planning is an important part. Simply put, ano ang sales? It's the way people or organizations plan what they need and how to keep up with the demand. It's balancing both demand and supply. In between, this is going to be a compelling action for many companies. Dapat magaling sila dito. This is what is being taught in supply chain management. I'm not going to get into this as far because it will require a lot of time to actually explain this. But it tells you that companies are much more desiring to implement several best practices. And this is one of the core best practices that companies will have to learn and adapt. Next, please. So this is also what we call procurement. I think I talked about this, about strategic sourcing a while ago. So moving it from purchasing, from procurement to strategic sourcing. So we are endorsing that companies and even nations has to implement strategic sourcing. Next, please. The rise of Uberization is going to happen. What I mean, the use of technology in logistics, in warehouse, in transportation, and the like. This is very important. You will see things moving very fast along this particular path. And there's just so much opportunities to move into this particular industry or segment because they require a lot of people as well. Next, please. So in our company, we do implement a lot of supply chain digitalization that is connected to the manufacturing industry. Example, planning is very important to be connected to the manufacturing. Dapat synchronized na yan. When a company or when one of you eats in a restaurant, that restaurant has an inventory system. That inventory system of the restaurant will now be connected to Procter & Gamble or to any particular company that sells ingredients or food, anything, or wine or what have you. The entire system is going to be calculated already. What is the needed replenishment? What is the needed inventory? What is the needed delivery time? All of us, sooner or later, will be all interconnected with all of about this technology. And we're doing all of those things. We're implementing a lot of that as we speak right now. And it's really moving very fast, particularly on AI, which we have a technology from Singapore that we're actually implementing in the Philippines. Quite interesting. Next, please. So this is how it's working. I'll give you an example. Sa procurement, before buying yan, strategic sourcing, down nito ng e-procurement. Right now, they're talking about electronic marketplaces, which is the best model because people will have and companies will have to come together to cooperate and leverage their purchasing power. But it has to be done in a very digital way. And we're making it happen in the Philippines and in Asia region as well. Next, please. So there are trends of digitalization. We're talking, siguro narinig na yung mga blockchain, cryptocurrency and the like. If we have time, we can talk about this going forward. Pero there's a lot of new technologies, including cyber tracking, sensors, may mga tinatawag na cognitive, crowdsourcing, 3D printing, robotics, collaborative networks. But you have to start somewhere. Things like electronic procurement should be the foundation of your development on this particular area. Next, please. So a lot of things are evolving in this space, and technology addresses supply chain disruption. But there are new skills that are needed. There are significant back office behind this technology. Hindi naman puro technology yan. Like collating data, fixing data and master data, maintenance and management, analytics. Behind this is going to create new jobs as well. These jobs will be totally different. This is not what is being taught right now. We are learning as we move along. These are new things that will be so in demand because this is the ones that's going to support technology evolving across the globe. Next, please. So very important, even we talk about technology, I always leave this slide and I will never negotiate with anybody who say hindi ito importante. It's very important that, amidst all of the technology or best practices, very important yung ethics. Very important yung integrity. So this is going to be heightened because there's going to be more demand for transparency. So for you, even though you're a small company or you're an entrepreneur after 2 years from now, very important that you always take a look about how you behave and how you manifest your actions across the environment. Diba? How do you take care of the environment? Nagdi-dispose ka ba ng mga toxic items, in places that you don't have to do that? How are you treating your employees? How are you treating your suppliers? Are you treating them fairly? How are you managing your financials also? Because if your financials are corrupt, because in the Philippines, mataas tayo dito, that is the thing that I'm trying to help, eliminate. Sabi nga nila, when you go to China, they give money under the table. But when you go to Malaysia, they give money on top of the table. Tapos may narinig ako, you know what, in the Philippines, they even get the table. Parang nakakasakit ng loob yun pag naririnig yun na ang mga Filipino daw is corrupt. So I think overall, a lot of corruption also happens in the supply chain. Nandito yung mga suppliers, nandito yung mga corrupt din. So we need to make sure that we strengthen this force or this area to have high level of ethics in the supply chain. Next, please. So how do we fortify and give our own contribution dito? Next, please. So very important dito that we also do our part. Kami sa PASIA, we're very active. For those of you who have time tomorrow is what? Is October 1st, diba? We have a webinar that we will really demonstrate our technology. So if you're interested about technology, come in. It's free. Register. It's available on Facebook. Check nyo lang sa website namin or in Facebook. I think it's 9 o'clock or 9:30. So we are going to show, America and the Philippines is going to show what we are launching. But this is what our contribution. We have been advocating best practices in supply chain. We're not happy of what's currently being done right now. Kulang ito. We're too delayed already in reacting. Puro tayo reaction. We should have done this immediately once we saw the situation going to blow out this way. Next, please. So we're doing a lot of, before we do a lot of face-to-face training, pero ngayon lahat online training na kami ngayon, everything. And for those of you who wants to use your HRM degree, you can also use it for supply chain development. You can be in supply chain with a good HR course. I can tell you that. Tatanungin niyo ako anong college course ko, ba't ang ingay-ingay ko? Actually, ang college course ko is behavioral science. Mas related pa nga yung hotel restaurant management sa supply chain. But it doesn't mean even nurses, even anybody regardless of the course, supply chain is a very much open field for them. So we have changed the way we operate also as a company. Next, please. And certification is going to be very important. This certification takes a very short amount of time. We have a certification. These are a few courses. These are like 6-day courses, but you got really trained. We are not going to train you what the school has trained you already because it's a waste of time. We will train you specifically what gets into the job of operating yourself as a supply chain, procurement, and as a logistics professional. We have this very much in place. So right now, we launched last Monday what we call a supply chain trainee program. What is our supply chain trainee program? This is for newly graduate people, new graduate people, and even this is for students, working students who wants to work at the same time get certified. We pay them a big amount of money too, and they will have to work at home. So they are quite happy because they get a regular pay. If they schedule their working capabilities and availability without missing school, we try to make sure that they don't miss their school. Their priority is still their school. But for those who have graduated already, they have a different package also, because it's a full-time job. But we are going to make sure that we train them properly. Can you show Edmond the courses here so that they actually get to see what type of training do? Ito yung mga tinitrain namin. This is really how to do it, type of a thing. But at the same time, since they work in our company, they get to experience real life activity, hindi puro theoretical. Okay. So they really like it, and a lot of people are lining up for this. So we're excited to accommodate them as well in this program. Next, please. So now we're moving from, siguro familiar kayo about Lazada, Shopee, and everything. Ako rin, I use that also. Pero those things are what you call business to consumer, di ba? Kasi consumer kayo. Pero ang pinaka-importante, ang pinaka-greatest opportunity to do online buying are companies, di ba? Kasi companies have to buy their materials or their services. Pero walang platform yan. So we saw that opportunity 18 years ago and we developed a platform for this. No? So what we're telling you is like we are going to be the largest platform e-marketplace for companies and suppliers out there. We are even thinking of putting up a specific vertical only for hotels and restaurants, so that hotels and restaurants will just go to one place and where all of the suppliers are available, from chairs to condiments to posters. So we have launched this, and almost every week we do a webinar kasi hindi kaya ng capacity namin on webinars. We're putting up an e-marketplace. This is like Lazada or Shopee, but for business. So we need a lot of people to work with us here. It's a very interesting work. It's really supply chain management, and they don't have to carry anything. Hindi to bodegero work. It's very analytical and processing of paperwork, and a lot of e-commerce stuff gets into this. So we're showing this tomorrow, online and live. I'm going to talk to, and together with my partners in America, we'll be dialing up to show this particular item or system or e-marketplace. This will be the way companies are going to do business or to trade. And hospitals and restaurants and hotels are also going to adapt into this particular arena. Wala naman talagang choice, but digitalization. Next, please. So we are making sure that we're trying to do our part. We think that we have a great opportunity. Ayaw kong malimit tayo na Filipinos are known for OFW. No, I don't know. I just don't want that Filipinos are known to become, servers or nurses or BPO processors. I think we could make the Philippines know as the supply chain services professional of the world or back office of the world. Because if we have good people in supply chain, so we have companies. If we have companies that are better in supply chain, they're going to be profitable. So the economies will actually get better. And if the economies are better, then we are all better in our lives, di ba? So our chances for survival. Ang problem natin ngayon in our country is poor supply chain management. Very poor. Wala nag-orchestrate. Nagbibilang tayo ng patay kung sinong infected. Hindi tayo nagbibilang kung sino ang mga kumpleto na sa PPE. Already na ba tayo sa vaccine pag nag-aging available? Hindi natin tinitingnan kung sino yung mga nagugutom na kailangan natin supplyan ng mga pagkain. I am hoping and I'm working very hard to get into that point, to make an impact. And I am hoping that this platform will start the ball rolling, plus all of the online learnings and education that we're doing across the country and in the region and around the world. Next, please. So I'd like to thank you for giving me, I think I overshot a little bit. I never stop speaking. I love to engage. And that is a very short snapshot of what I potentially could contribute given the amount of time that was privilegedly given to me by the university. So maraming salamat, and I'll be happy to answer your questions also.
Thank you very much for that informative and enlightening talk, Mr. Charlie Villaseñor. Indeed, knowing yung mga much more deeper details when it comes to supply chain, mas maintindihan po talaga namin ito. And mas alam po namin yung importance nito in the industry. Now let us move on to our question and answer portion to be guided by Dr. Ana Pamela Honson.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Villaseñor. And thank you for that informative talk. We are interested to join some of your webinars soon. So with that, I think we have a couple of questions here in our chat box. So let me start with the first question. This is from Mr. John Gal Cruz. Good afternoon, Mr. Villaseñor. I am John Gal Cruz. And one of the hosts in this afternoon, may I ask her what is the requirement for becoming a supply chain manager? Is it hard to manage? And can you cite some example of a problem that you already solved? Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. You know what? When you enter the supply chain field, take any job. You know what? Hindi ako namimili ng trabaho when I first entered the workplace, di ba? The first company that invited me was a company called China Bank. Diyan ako sa Binondo, nilalakad ko yan magmulang Binondo hanggang Quiapo para makasakay lang ako sa jeep and makauwi sa bahay. And I took up my MBA while I was doing it. Alam mo, ang supply chain, before, hindi important for many companies. Pero ngayon, pag sinabi mong supply chain, alam nila na it makes a significant impact. So, you can enter into any job. It could be a clerical job. It could be an assistant, analyst job. Just get into it and start honing. Kasi maraming areas yan yung supply chain, procurement, or logistics. And dyan papasok yung mga artificial intelligence. Dyan papasok yung mga sustainability. How do you become a successful supply chain manager? You have to show them that you have the right education. And you have, ang pinaka-importante na it's not only education, is integrity. Dapat makita nila na ethical ka. Hindi ka pwedeng bilhin ng mga supplier. Kasi sa supply chain, madali ka rin yumaman Pero mabilis ka rin matanggalan ng trabaho. And sooner or later, mahuhuli ka. Can you just imagine ikaw ang nagbibigay ng contracts and nag-award ng mga yan sa mga supplier? It exposes you to a lot of temptation. How do you become a successful supply chain? Forget about technical skills. Yung technical skills, madi-develop yan over time. And you will be able to, supplement it. Never negotiate that you sell your soul to the devil. So integrity is most important. Yun lang masasabi ko.
All right. Thank you, sir. I believe it answers your questions, right, John?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Another question, sir. This is from Miss Desiree Hoa, another host in this afternoon. May I ask her, why is it very important to know and understand the supply chain management really well? How does it affect the business? Thank you.
Yeah, because supply chain is about risk. Supply chain management is the enabler for business success. You know, ang supply chain siya ang nagkukumpas all of the functions, yung materials, yung services, yung operations, yung logistics, yung procurement. Kung walang supply chain, I'll make this very simple. I use the millennial terminology. Kung walang supply chain, merong supply chain. Alam mo yung supply chain? Sasablay yung operation mo. Doon ka papatawag sa principal's office. Bakit hindi ka nakabenta? Imagine mo kung ako ang supply manager ng Coca-Cola. Kung mabagal ako, hindi ko na-order on time yung mga kailangan kong packaging or raw material, hindi makakabenta yung salespeople namin. No benta, no income. No income, no revenue. No revenue, no salaries. Ganun kasimple yun. Kaya ganun ka-importante ang supply chain.
I agree, sir. Now, we have another question here. This question is from our program head, Ms. Marie Chuliwanag. Hi, Sir Charlie. What do you suggest in procuring or buying the raw materials of the food business? Do we have enough supply to buy produced products locally between local products and outsourced ones? What do you suggest for those who would like to start to open up a food business, especially to newbies?
Yeah, it's I have to be honest with you guys. I cannot sugarcoat what I think. It's very hard to start up a new restaurant this time, but we all know it. Maybe we have to wait a little bit, and if the situation gets better, you have to tread on this very carefully, because the usual drove of people eating in restaurants will not be the same as before. So, what is the better way of buying it? Alam mo, may tinatawag kaming AXKIR model. Ano yung AXKIR? It stands for assurance of supply. A stands for assurance of supply. Q stands for quality. S stands for service. C stands for cost. And so on and so forth. I stands for innovation. R stands for regulatory requirements. So I'm not suggesting that you always buy at the lowest price. Baka mamaya lowest price yan kasi may problema yung produkto na yan. So ang kailangan mo is to ensure that you have a partner, supplier who will take care of you. You need to partner closely with your supplier to get the most advantageous deal. But the suppliers are also business-wise. They want to see big volumes of orders, di ba? So for you to do it, do not work alone. You should work with the people who buys the same things, and mag-usap-usap kayo para ma-leverage yung volume nyo. And that's what our marketplace is trying to put in place. Paglabas nyo dito, nakatayo na yung mga marketplace na yan. Lahat ng restaurants, kukunin namin, kakausapin namin na lahat ng binibili nyo, lagay nyo na sa e-catalog sa amin. Lahat ng supplier ng hotel, restaurants, ilagay nyo na. Parang yung mga restaurants, diretso na ang bili sa inyo. Wala na yung mga middleman. Diretso na talaga what is the lowest cost, and that can be shipped to you by us. So consolidation is very important, because the more middleman, the more tongpats, di ba? Maraming nagpapatong across. And you want to cut that supply chain into more efficient supply chain. So the platform will create more transparency, more opportunity to leverage yung binibili, and better pricing for those who are going to set up their restaurants or who's going to buy. Dapat nagugrupo-grupo yan. Yung mga industries ngayon, nagugrupo-grupo na kasi papasok na sila sa PASIA marketplace namin. Yung mga construction companies, semiconductor companies, and we are not going to forget na yung hotel and restaurant companies will have to be given their own platform. Ilalagay namin lahat ng suppliers para you could access them properly. So, new things are on the way.
All right, thank you, sir. So we'll be accommodating 2 more questions for today. Let me read another question here from Miss Lorraine Dale Laconsay. I'm a third year HRM student from Supply Chain Management class. Sir, I would like to ask po, what is the most challenging situation that supply chain is facing right now due to pandemic? And how does supply chain role in coping up with these challenges po? Thank you very much.
The biggest problem are the companies closing down or the companies unable to supply. So if you're a company and your supplier is impacted, hindi makasupply yung supplier nila kasi nagsasarado din yung supplier nila. Kasi siguro yung supplier ng supplier nagsasarado din. O may COVID din sila, may mga problema sila. You know, sometimes countries are telling them not to export to the Philippines or to other countries. Magkakaroon talaga ng short supply. So that's a very big threat to companies. Because once they don't receive these items, then they cannot manufacture and reproduce and create their products, di ba? So yung existence ng mga suppliers nila is quite very important. Because everybody is affected right now. So we have to really find ways to protect the people so that they don't get sick. As well, isa pa yan. Marami din, ngayon, di ba, narinig nyo siguro sa radyo, di ba, there was one big construction companies, halos magsasara na ngayon, di ba, yung 3-letter company, kung nakikinig kayo kanina sa radyo, headline na headline, simply because yung mga empleyado nila may mga COVID na. So, paano tatakbo yung kumpanya kung lahat kayo dyan may COVID? Pwede mag-shutdown yung kumpanya, di ba? So the availability of PPEs, you know, practices to avoid COVID is very important. Kanina, I was concerned kasi apektado hindi lang yung malaking kumpanya na construction. Siyempre, sabi ng mga tricycle driver dun sa kumpanya na yun, paano kami sumakayan sa amin? So lahat kami dito na tricycle driver, baka may COVID. So, nakakatakot, di ba? Kasi hindi lang naman yung empleyado tinamaan eh. Yung mga sinakyan nila, yung mga nagdala sila sa kumpanya, mga tricycle drivers. Can you just imagine how difficult to, and they are all part of the supply chain, isn't it? The company will not get to operate, so probably they will have to hire buses to ferry their employees. But then, nakakatakot din to some extent. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. This will be the last question, sir, but I believe this is also related to the one that you have mentioned.
No problem.
So, good afternoon, Mr. Villaseñor. I am Moises Kaiser, third year HRM under Culinary Track. Yesterday po kasi I saw it sa news na marami pong workers na nag-positive sa COVID-19 sa, I think, that's the one that you mentioned, sa Batangas since big EEI company sa Batangas since big company or manufacturing service din siya. Since totally lockdown yung company nila and we are under the pandemic crisis, what other ways para ma-meet nila ulit ang usual revenue na kinikita nila together with the new normal, knowing po na surely maraming pagbabago sa production services nila?
Mahirap yung situation ng mga companies na ganito. Kasi pag talagang disrupted, they have two choices, di ba? They will have to find who could do the work for them, di ba? So outsourcing is going to be a big area. Baka some pieces of their operations will need to be outsourced. They have to spread out yung mga sites nila. Ang ginagawa ng mga companies ngayon, hindi nila linalagay sa isang location yung mga tao nila. Parang pag nagkaroon ng pandemic, sinisecure nila by location. Pero in some companies, hindi nila magawa yun kasi dapat yung mga tao sa production magkakasama eh. Diba? They have to work together. So, they have to create yung tinatawag na mga BCP, Business Continuity Plan. Diba? And yan ang tinuturo ng supply chain. How do you create business? Siguro dapat i-parcel lahat ng trabaho, i-disperse nila so that pag may isang site na tinamaan, tumatakbo pa yung ibang parte ng kumpanya. For example, isa din kagandahan niyan. Kung for example, tinamaan yung department nyo, tapos yung purchasing department, lahat sila may COVID o karamihan sa kanila may COVID, pwede mong i-outsource yung trabaho na yan to a service provider who has that as an expertise. Or yung HR, Pero sometimes yung production, hindi mo ma-outsource yan kasi kayo ang may intellectual property doon eh. So you really have to find, magbabago to ngayon. I'm sure, kilala ko naman yung management ng kumpanya na yan, and magagaling yan. They will have to find a way to create a BCP or a risk management action on this particular area. Either by changing the model on how they operate. Of course, ayusin muna nila yung may mga sakit, di ba? Kasi they're part of their team. Pero there are several ways. One is outsourcing it, creating a BCP plan, i-spread out nila yung risk, parang hindi sila tamaan, i-reschedule nila, ilagay nila sa different site. So they will have to identify all of the options available to them. Kung may mga pinoproduce sila mga items, baka yung supplier nila, sabi nila, kayo nila mag-produce yan, parang pagdating dito, finished goods na. You know? Lahat yan, activity nila yan. Lahat yan, supply chain transformation. They have to work very closely with their customers and their suppliers. And always, there's always a chance na hindi sila makareact din on time. So they're going to be, so binabantayan din namin kung ano nangyayari sa mga companies. Hindi lang naman yan isang company na yun eh. Hindi lang napapublish, pero ang dami ng company na nagkakaganyan ngayon. Ang tanong, ano ba talaga ang ginagawa natin to really solve this? Parang walang plano eh. Wala akong makitang supply chain plan eh. Parang naghihintay lang tayo sa vaccine. Hindi pwede yun. I'm sorry, baka may iba pa ako masabi dito, pero hindi talaga pwede tayo maghintay lang sa vaccine. We have to, be very proactive to address the current pandemic with better supply chain management.
All right. So thank you very much, Mr. Villaseñor. Just to inform those who have questions in the chat box, we'll just collate your question. But before we end up our Q&A, I think Ms. Mary Chuliwanag has mentioned something in the chat box. Would you like to say something, Ma'am Mary Chu?
Hi.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you, Marichu.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. Nakamute ka po yata, Miss Chu. Ma'am Chu.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can you
I
hear
can
me now?
hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sir Charlie, thank you for the information about hiring students po, and freshly graduates. We do hope and hopefully, sir, we can collaborate with your team, with your company, if in the future the students will go back to a normal face-to-face learning and teaching module, if they can also do internship to your office, to the companies that you are connected with, because we want our students also to be involved in supply chain management, so that they would be more knowledgeable in terms of supply chain. Thank you, Sir Charlie.
Let me respond on that, Marichu. It's good you mentioned that. Marichu, the future is now. So we're really open for your students. Kasi yung internship namin doesn't require you to be physically present in our office. I think that will happen very soon. So ang internship namin, we can give you several things to do and you can operate and do that work at your home. May magsusupervise sa'yo, may mag-co-coordinate sa'yo. And that work can be done at home. And the training also is actually online then. So just like Zoom, just like this, there's going to be American or Filipino professional trainer who's going to teach your students. I'm very much interested to teach your students, to be part of our internship program. And at the same time, I think we will also do good CSR by paying them well when they are part of our internship program, so that they'll find good reason to be part of our internship program. So we're, as you can see, we've been hiring almost every day. So we're quite keen to accommodate your students and also your new graduates as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow. So that is very nice for the ITHM family. Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
if you have
sir.
inquiries, just email that. Just email that. I will just maybe type it. Parang if you look, yeah, somebody's going to take care of your inquiry.
All right.
Go intern or something, Marichu, just send me, or just you can get my details. I think one of you have my details. You can just call me and I can direct you also to my team to help you guys out. Saka sometimes hindi lang kami Marichu. Kasi marami kaming clients na kailangan din nila ng internship sa mga companies nila. So you get to work with several companies, not only for us, because we have a lot of good customer companies na pwede namin i-endorse kayo for supply chain internship.
Wow.
Kasi kailangan din nila. Yeah. Napuputol ata tayo konti, pero that's okay. I think we're good naman. I think we were able to give you everything that we can tell you.
Yes, Sir Charlie. I think it would be a good potential din po to enable to learn kahit naka-online lang po tayo. So we can make use of the time din po.
Oo,
So
kasi
for the
now is the time especially when you have a lot of time, di ba? Huwag natin sayangin yung time natin. We have a chance, parang pag back to normal, bakbakan ulit tayo, di ba? Yung pero trained na yung mga students to enter the real world. Kasi we're not entering the real world, we're entering a new world, di ba? Pag labas natin dito, iba na to. Naka-set up na yung mga technology na to that was not available pre-COVID.
Yes, sir. This is really a great opportunity for the future ITHM students. So, Des, shall we move on?
Yeah. For the awarding of their certificate, may we call on the Assistant Program Head of the HRM Department, Mr. Eugene Emmanuel Benicta.
Okay, so thank you very much again, Sir Charlie, for a very informative as well as very interactive lecture for our third year and fourth year HRM students. Indeed, your talk is helpful po talaga for our students, taking up supply chain management as well as institutional purchasing. So with that, I would like to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Mr. Charlie Villaseñor for his valuable contribution as guest speaker during the Hotel and Restaurant Management Series professional learning sessions for future tourism and hospitality leaders with his topic, Building Resilience and Adaptive Supply Chain for Long-Term Smart Manufacturing Strategy, given this 30th day of September 2020 at Far Eastern University, Manila. Signed by our Dean, Dr. Joy Sheila B. Era from the Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management. So thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you also. It's my pleasure to work with you and to help you. Salamat. Keep well and take care, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Important announcement. Yeah, closing remarks.
Thank you, Sir Charlie.
So that concludes our lecture on the supply chain management subject. But before we end, may we call on our program head for our closing remark.
Let us all welcome the Program Head of the HRM Department for the school year 2020-2021, Ms. Marichu Karasig-Liwanag. Let us all give her a warm round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, to sum it up and give synthesis of this lecture series, the ITHM team would like to thank, of course, our distinguished speakers, Architect John Vincent Riego, the Principal Architect of CENIA Architecture and Design, and of course the Chairman of the Board of the Procurement and Supply Institution of Asia, or PASIA, Sir Charlie Villaseñor, for giving us a lot of information and key points during this lecture series for our ergonomics and facilities, FACIDE and supply chain and institutional purchasing courses. Thank you for providing us the good points in building restaurants, and also it's a very timely for us to understand the new normal setup and protocols in coping up with COVID-19, especially for those who are taking up the ergonomics. They have to understand the human comfort, balance and aesthetics, materials, soft fixtures, and of course the controlled acoustics, the circulation, and of course the spacing when you would like to set up a new restaurant. And at the same time, for supply chain, my synthesis is for that the Sir Charlie already gave us the importance of supply chain to the business, especially to the students who are taking up supply chain. You would understand that there is a big difference between the reality and the books. The reality, you have to experience and immerse yourself to the business with regards to supply chain and how the buyer and supplier cycle or the chain affects the economy, especially during this pandemic. For the food security, of course, for the supply chain, you have to understand that it's also understandable, and you have to make sure that food security, how it is being transported or logistically, the inventory and excess shortages, of course, the digitalization versus the significance of operations. It's very important that you understand the new trends in urbanization, the supply chain best practices as well. You have to plan, you have to procure, and of course understand the logistics as well. You have also to recalibrate or recalibration of the supply chain in the operation. As per Sir Charlie, logistics is very important in urbanization. And digitalization is now a mandatory. So for those students who are studying supply chain, make sure that you also we wish that our students understand these new trends and the new challenges in doing the supply chain, especially these courses that we wish that all of you learned a lot, especially the key points that they gave to you, and will help you understand more deeply the trends and the new normal, especially for the future entrepreneurs of ITHM, our HRM students, whether you are a culinary or an hotel operations track. So thank you everyone, and thank you to our faculty who are here listening and joining us, especially the faculty of the courses that we have giving them their webinars, Doc Pam, Doc Yuli, Doc Mark, and of course, Doc Adalbert for assisting us to get this caliber and distinguished speakers. Thank you so much. To our technical team, Ma'am Elaine, of course, our Assistant Program Head, Sir Eugene, Benita, and our student leaders and our host for making sure that this webinar is good enough, especially we have a lot of technical problems during those times na nagkaroon ng maintenance to the network providers. So we thank everyone in behalf of the ITHM family. Thank you very much and have a good day. Good afternoon to all.
All right. Thank you so much for that very well-rounded synthesis for the very first lecture series, Ma'am Mary Chu. Today, we hope all of us learned something new that could be helpful in a respective subject. And now, we conclude the HRM Lecture Series, Professional Learning Series number 1. May we please request everybody to please stay and open their cameras for the singing of the FEU hymn.
May we remind everyone to please
Thank
answer